The first thing the man did after waking up in the game world was try to take off the blue and white panties on his character. After all, for a 12+ online game, there was no way the system was supposed to make a female character that outrageous. But the next second, he actually managed to pull them off, staring at the piece of fabric still warm in his hand. The man's eyes instantly went blank. His character panel still worked, and his stats, skills, and gear were all exactly the same. So why had he ended up as Varys of all people? He was a full-grown man, and now he had painlessly turned into a girl just like that? Actually, maybe that wasn't so bad. Still, as a priest with basically no real attack power, the top priority was making sure she had some insurance first. Come out, summoning contract. In an instant, a massive golden rune circle belonging to Donglo flared into existence. From within it, a beautiful girl with flowing long hair, curved horns, and a maid outfit slowly appeared. Master, would you like to ride me now? Varys had heard that line countless times in the game, but hearing it in person still hit like a truck. And as a pet meant to make up for her lack of combat power, Donglo used to do nothing but follow orders and repeat a few preset lines. But the Donglo standing here now felt unbelievably alive. Then again, that made sense. Since she had already crossed into the game world, it really was not that surprising for Donglo to have her own thoughts. Besides, who could possibly say no to a beautiful dragon girl who was absolutely loyal and constantly trying to snuggle up to you? After a quick exchange, Varys decided to scout the surrounding area, while Donglo naturally took over the job of protecting her. Time flew by, and before long, it was deep into the night. In a stretch of forest that should have been dead silent, wave after wave of shrill, miserable howls kept echoing through the trees. Watching the man get smacked back yet again, the girl desperately casting healing magic trembled as she cried out, "Uncle Lester, please run!" The man struggled back to his feet and picked up his sword, then roared at the black tiger monster towering 5 or 6 meters at the shoulder as it slowly pressed toward them. "There's no way I'm leaving you behind!" But just as his furious roar peaked, a figure came crashing down like a meteor, smashing that heroic battle cry into a weird, off-key shriek halfway through. Donglo did not care how shocked these humans were. She simply said in a flat voice, "My master has questions for you." Lester was still frozen in shock at the sight of this sudden, divine-looking reinforcement when the girl's desperate cry yanked him right back to reality. "Why won't the bleeding stop?" "I'm sorry, Uncle Lester. Leon," hearing words that sounded almost like a death sentence. Lester's grief and rage exploded at once. He slapped Leon hard across the face. "You brat, hang in there! Didn't you say you were going to propose after this mission was over?" Watching from the side, Varys could not help snarking to herself. No wonder you were the one dying. You went and stacked every death flag you possibly could. Perfect. You'll do nicely for a skill test. Let's start with level 1 heal. Varys slowly raised her left hand, and a holy magic circle overflowing with healing power instantly unfolded beneath Leon. In less than a breath, the wound that had left the girl completely helpless closed up at a visible speed under everyone's stunned gaze. The wound? It healed? Even the greatest priest I have ever seen couldn't treat an injury like that, and now not even a scar is left behind. This has to be a miracle, right? Varys calmly glanced at her status panel. It was probably because her level was way too high. One basic heal had filled his HP bar all the way back up. That was a bit more effective than she expected. Come to think of it, this account had originally been created as a human, but after the level cap was raised to 110, its race had been forcibly changed into a divine one. Still, right now she should technically count as a normal person. Probably. No way she was about to shout something like, "I reject my humanity," just to get stronger. At that moment, Lester seemed to realize something. Someone with healing powerful enough to pull that off, and with the strength to casually one-shot a night tiger. "Miss, could you possibly be the salvation saint from the Holy Kingdom?" Varys immediately shut that down with a triple denial. "Don't know her. Never heard of it. Not me. My name's Varys, though. I'm just, a traveler drifting from place to place." A short while later, inside a tavern, Varys learned the rough power system of this world from Lester. The ranks here were broadly divided into beginner, red bronze, mithril, crystal gold, demon steel, earth, sky, and legend. Varys nodded with a straight face, while Donglo finally snapped, "Could you stop shaking your leg already?" Lester hurriedly pressed down on his restless leg and forced a bitter smile. "I'd love to, but standing in front of 2 people who feel practically legendary, I seriously can't help it." Varys ignored his despair completely. Once she got the information she wanted, she simply stood up and went back to her room. Based on what she had observed earlier, Lester's strength was somewhere around level 20 to 30 at most. If every 10 levels roughly matched one rank, then even so-called legendary fighters would only be in the 60s, which meant that she, having crossed over at max level, was basically the strongest being in this world, wasn't she? The moment that conclusion clicked, Varys' mood instantly improved. She casually scratched Donglo, who was soaking in the bath, and the dragon girl let out a series of satisfied purrs. So after all that, this was one of those boring setups where the priest was absurdly overpowered and just way too cautious for her own good. But just as Varys finally relaxed and started wondering why the room only had one bed, Donglo's expression suddenly changed. Flipping straight into combat mode, she scooped her master right out of the tub. "Master, there's an abnormal energy fluctuation outside." At the same time, a black-robed man clutching an azure crystal was dashing through the alleyways. "So what if the night tiger is dead? As long as I still have this wind demon crystal, I can still..." Before he could finish, a window thrown open without warning slammed straight into him and launched him backward. Looking down at the wind demon crystal that had flown right into her hand, Donglo tilted her head. What is this thing?" As she spoke, she instinctively gave it a squeeze. The next instant, a burst of electric arcs exploded out of the crystal, scaring her so badly that she dropped it on the spot, puffed up all over, and started hissing at it like an angry cat. Varys helplessly pulled the bristling Donglo into her arms, gently stroking her head and smoothing her hair while softly calming her down. At the same time, she casually cast an appraisal spell on the crystal. It turned out to be a gemstone from the staff of an ancient demon god, shattered and scattered during a great war long ago. Woohoo! Now that is finally something interesting. Just as Varys was feeling pretty great, her cheeks suddenly turned warm. Pressed right up against her, Donglo said in complete seriousness, "Master, you're still wet. Let me lick you dry." Varys instantly panicked. Wait, hold on, not there." The next morning, Varys groggily opened her eyes and mumbled, "It's morning already. What time is it?" But instead of an answer, what she got was Donglo's restrained murmur. "Master, that spot is really sensitive." That was when Varys finally snapped, fully awake. Right. She had already crossed over. When it was time to part ways with Lester and the others, she even dug an item out of her inventory and handed it to him. "Take this. Consider it a souvenir." Lester and the others froze on the spot. This is a spirit treasure?" Meanwhile, Varys quietly confirmed something to herself. So people in this world really could use gear from illusory realm. Judging by how utterly stunned they looked, even the cheapest throwaway item in her eyes was apparently treated like a priceless treasure here. Whatever. Let's head for the Human Kingdom's capital first and gather more information. Since there probably were not many people capable of sensing Donglo anyway, there was no point hiding anymore. They could just move at full speed. Elsewhere, 2 squads of heavily armored knights were locked in a vicious battle around an ornate carriage. "Protect the princess with your lives. Do not let them get anywhere near the carriage." But the instant that shout left his mouth, a sword slipped neatly through a gap in his armor and slit his throat open. The moment the last black-armored warrior fell, someone immediately rushed over and yanked open the carriage curtain, only to find it empty. Empty? How is that possible? Where did the princess go? One of the soldiers roared in fury, but before he could finish, several magic circles suddenly lit up beneath the carriage. It's a trap. By the time they realized it, it was already too late. A thunderous explosion instantly swallowed up the nearby soldiers. Just as the remaining men were still reeling in shock, the sharp neigh of a warhorse suddenly rang out from behind them. "I am Lilia McKelland, 5th Princess of the United Human Kingdom. Brave warriors loyal to the crown, heed my command. Charge and wipe out the traitors." Far above the battlefield, watching the whole thing from the sky, Varys nodded with clear approval. "Nice setup. That Princess Lilia actually knows what she's doing." Donglo immediately turned sour. "It's nothing but cheap tricks. Only the weak rely on little schemes like that." Varys curled her lips into a faint smile and smoothly changed the subject. "Well, the show's over. Time for us to get moving too." But just as they were about to leave, Donglo suddenly shouted, "Master, look out!" In the same instant, she flashed in front of Varys. A sword still trembling violently had already stopped right before her body, and only then did the shrill ripping sound of it cutting through the air finally catch up. As Varys' guard, Donglo instantly flew into a rage, teetering on the edge of a full berserk state. "These arrogant, ignorant lesser beings dare offend my master's majesty? I'll wipe every last one of you out." A terrifying mass of destructive power, with the force of a natural disaster, began gathering inside Donglo's mouth. Just as she was about to unleash it, Varys clamped a hand over her mouth, forcing it back down. "Wait, don't start blasting yet. There probably isn't anything in this world that can actually hurt me. Donglo, go back to the pet space for now." As she spoke, a pair of magnificent wings suddenly unfurled behind Varys. Since they were clearly so eager to meet her, she decided she might as well give them the honor. Holy radiance poured down from the sky as Varys slowly descended before them. "So you're the princess of the United Human Kingdom?" Lilia stared at her in a daze, eyes filled with awe. "Are you an angel, my lady?" But the woman dressed like a ranger immediately pulled Lilia behind her and warned in a low voice, "Your Highness, be careful. She and that other one were watching our battle from the sky the whole time. Lilia did not resist. She simply smiled and greeted Varys politely. Then may I ask why this angelic lady has come to us? Varys answered coolly. If you want to trade information, shouldn't it go both ways? At that, the smile on Lilia's face became noticeably more sincere. In that case, would Big Sister Angel care to join me inside the carriage for a chat? Varys arched a brow. I'm no angel bot. My name is Varys. I'm just a traveler passing through. Lilia stopped beating around the bush and got straight to the point. Then may I ask Miss Varys to accept my employment, at least for the time being? If you are willing to help me, I can offer you gold, magic items, noble status, even land. That finally got Varys a little interested. Oh? Titles and territory too? That was not the kind of promise just anyone could casually make. Lilia lowered her head and fell silent for a moment, then slowly said, Your guess was correct. I want to become the Queen of the United Kingdom. Miss Varys, would you be willing to lend me your strength? Ever since crossing over, Varys rarely had much of an emotional reaction anymore. But hearing that, she almost laughed out loud. A rebellion, huh? Now that was interesting. With clear curiosity, she asked, And why exactly are you willing to trust someone whose background you know nothing about? Lilia let out a soft sigh. To be frank, my father has been gravely ill for a long time, but my brothers care about nothing except fighting each other. They have no concern at all for the affairs of the kingdom. If I do not step forward, then everything my father spent his life building will collapse in their hands. But even so, I underestimated how foolish they were. They joined forces and sent me to the front lines. If I refused, it would be the same as surrendering my right to the throne. After hearing all that, Varys cut right to the heart of it. So, in plain terms, you want me to kill all your brothers for you, is that it? Lilia froze for a split second before hurriedly waving her hands. And no, of course not. I only want Miss Varys to ensure my safety. As long as I can make it safely back to the capital, anything within my power is yours to ask for. Varys gave a small nod, then pointed toward the red-haired woman outside the carriage. And what about her? What's her payment for protecting you? The red-haired woman answered calmly. Lilia is my friend. I came of my own will, and I believe she truly can make this kingdom better. Hearing that open support, Lilia felt pride swell inside her. She's one of the 3 legends of the City of Courage and the youngest legendary adventurer of this era. Legendary rank, huh? Varys instantly made her own assessment. Then she said, Fine. I don't need payment. In exchange, every piece of information and knowledge you have must be shared with me honestly. So, no matter how you look at it, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Lilia immediately smiled. Of course. Miss Varys, I look forward to working with you. The massive convoy got moving again, but from inside the carriage, Varys' curious voice just kept coming nonstop. Lilia, are beast folk really like the books say? Once they reach adulthood, can they really match elite human soldiers? Even though she clearly hated admitting it, Lilia still nodded. Yes, that's the truth. And different beast folk possess different innate gifts. The royal bloodlines are especially terrifying. They inherited half of a legendary bloodline, and the power they wield is monstrous. It's even said that the current Beast Emperor has already surpassed the legendary rank and stepped into a realm beyond description. Seeing how serious she was, Varys could only keep a blank face and give her a token nod. Sounded impressive enough. The real question was how many levels that translated to. 60-something? Or even higher. While she was still thinking it over, the carriage suddenly came to a halt. Varys sat upright at once, her hair still slightly messed up from lounging around, while leaned her head into the carriage and said in a lowered voice, Lilia, the vanguard's been stopped outside the east gate of Myriad Ravine Fortress. A moment later, Lilia rode up to the gate on a white horse, her face turning cold. I am Lilia McKelland, 5th Princess of the United Kingdom. Why are you refusing to open the gates? A voice from the wall quickly answered, Forgive us, Your Highness. The city is in a state of emergency right now. We must verify your identity first. Lilia let out a scornful snort. Cheap tricks. Hua wasted no time. She immediately tied the transfer order to an arrow shaft. In the next instant, she unleashed a flying swallow sky-rending slash, and a blast of crimson light ripped straight through the setting sun. Then came a thunderous boom. The soldiers looked at the flaming crater behind them and instantly broke into cold sweats. It's the legendary adventurer Flying Swallow. As expected of Hua, even here at Myriad Ravine Fortress, the name Flying Swallow carried serious weight. But Varys only narrowed her eyes, a little disappointed. That strike was probably somewhere around level 40 to 50 at most. So this was the peak of legendary rank? Not all that impressive. Once the order had been verified, the group was quickly brought in to meet the fortress commander. But the moment Lilia saw General Radon, withered, gaunt, and looking like he could die at any second, she immediately realized she had misunderstood the situation earlier. By the ancestral spirits, why was I never informed that you had fallen this ill? What in the world happened here? In a grief-stricken voice, Rector explained, "Half a month ago, my father was ambushed and stabbed by a dagger coated in some bizarre poison. No matter what methods we used, his condition kept getting worse day by day. As the atmosphere grew heavier and heavier, Varys quietly activated information detection. The moment she saw the dark violet haze wrapped around Radon's body, she was genuinely surprised. This was a status ailment that had never even appeared in Illusory Realm. Still, the underlying principle felt close enough to a curse dot. In that case, she might as well try that skill. Just as Varys lifted a hand to cast, General Radon seemed to finish speaking his final wishes. Like a man burning through his last burst of life, he suddenly threw his head up and roared, "Rector! From here on, you'll take my place. Assist Her Highness and drive those damn beast folk out." In the very next instant, sacred light poured down like a river of stars, piercing straight through the roof and flooding Radon's sickbed in brilliance. Rector, who had been about to answer his father at the top of his lungs, froze on the spot instead. His mouth hung wide open, and after choking on his words for several long seconds, all he managed to force out was a drawn-out "I." Meanwhile, after casting Heavenly Blessing, Varys simply stood there in total silence, looking as if nothing at all had happened. But Radon, now suddenly transformed back into a full-blown wall of muscle, was very clearly not anywhere near that calm. Meanwhile, inside the Beastfolk camp, a shrill scream suddenly tore through the air. "My eye!" The attendant nearby stared in shock and blurted out, "The High Priestess's heavenly eye secret art. It was broken?" Jaehaerys clutched her bleeding right eye, but her gaze remained locked on the direction of Myriad Ravine Fortress. That dawn-like light? Was that a miracle? And because of that, she launched a full-scale night assault with the Beastfolk army that very same night. The Tigress warrior Kinnear charged at the front with a dagger clenched between her teeth. That human called Radon was probably still lying in bed, half dead and useless. Then I'll be the one to tear open the humans' fragile defenses and dedicate this victory to Lord R. But the moment she saw Radon already standing atop the wall waiting for them, radiating savage killing intent, Kinnear froze on the spot. Even the dagger in her mouth dropped to the ground with a clang. Radon raised his sword with a vicious grin. "I heard you lot have been spreading the word everywhere that I'm dead." Boom! In the next instant, a figure was launched off the wall like a tiger-striped cannonball. "Pass down my order. First unit, rain down the boiling oil and fire arrows. Let them learn what we're capable of." At the same time, from the top of the clock tower, Varys watched the battle-lit walls and let out a quiet sigh. Donglo, looking at a scene like this, do you feel anything in particular? Donglo tilted her head and thought seriously for a long moment before answering slowly. They're trying pretty hard." Varys gave a self-mocking little laugh. "Yeah, fair enough. You are a dragon after all." Donglo obviously had no idea what Varys was really sighing about. She just took every chance she could to cling to her master. Varys raised a hand and pointed toward the Beastfolk flying unit hauling siege boulders through the night sky, her expression growing distant. Even though all of this was happening in reality, even though she was watching soldiers of the same race die with her own eyes, why did she still feel nothing? Just as the siege stones were about to come crashing down, a radiant shield suddenly spread out, covering the entire defensive line. 6th tier magic, Guardian Light. The sight instantly ignited the faith of the human soldiers. A miracle! The miracle has descended again! The gods are helping us drive off those filthy beastfolk. Faced with a holy barrier so overwhelming it bordered on despair, the beastfolk did not even wait for orders. They began fleeing in panic on their own. Among the few who knew what was really happening, Lilia was staring toward the top of the clock tower, already certain of the answer. So it really was Miss Varys again. Varys stood there, listening to the soldiers cheering below, yet not the slightest ripple stirred in her heart. Everything before her felt real beyond doubt. So why did it still feel like she was just playing a game? Meanwhile, on the other side of the beastfolk camp, a black-robed man quietly stepped inside, but the moment he tried to move forward, a cold warning cut through the air. "If I were you, I wouldn't take another step." Startled by the sudden warning, the black-robed man jumped back 3 paces, his expression instantly hardening. Legendary rank? Since when did the Foxfolk produce someone this young at that level? Mavis, who had just suffered a defeat, was already in a terrible mood. Humans all deserve to die. But just as she was about to draw her sword, the fluffy fox ears atop her head suddenly twitched. After a brief pause, Mavis slowly put her weapon away and said through clenched teeth, "You're lucky. The High Priestess wants to see you." A short while later, the black-robed man finally snapped, "The Master clearly told you to get that woman killed. So why did you just pull the troops back?" The High Priestess's eyelid twitched in fury. "You still have the nerve to question me? How about you explain first why Radon didn't die and was instead running around on the wall giving orders like nothing happened?" The black-robed man did not answer directly. Instead, he suddenly pointed at the High Priestess's right eye and asked, "What happened to your eye?" The High Priestess's face darkened instantly. "None of your damn business. I know your side delivered more than enough grain this time. Since I've accepted it, I'll do my part." Those two so-called miracles were on completely different levels. Either there's an absolute monster hidden up there, or they use some kind of special item. Either way, that trick can't be used over and over again. The black-robed man immediately pressed on. "Then if Mavis goes after the princess, what are the odds?" After a brief pause, Mavis answered coldly, "If there really is someone inside the city who has surpassed legendary rank, then 3 out of 10. But the High Priestess suddenly bared her teeth in a chilling grin. "And what if the princess leaves the city on her own?" 10 out of 10. Mavis gave the answer without the slightest hesitation. "Good. If that princess is really as clever as you say, then the only way she can force my beast folk army to retreat is by leaving the city herself and striking our supply lines." Elsewhere, after hearing the analysis, Lilia let out a helpless sigh. "It seems Miss Varys still has no idea just how outrageous the things you've already done really are. If General Radon hadn't been suppressing it so strictly, they probably would have erected a statue of you in the central plaza by now," Varys pointed out sharply. "And now the beast folk army is surrounding us without attacking. They're obviously waiting for you to leave the city." Lilia gave a small nod. "I know, but I'm running out of time. Something could happen to Father at any moment. If that happens before I return to the royal capital, if I can't even produce a proper reason for my absence, then for the sake of the people trapped here in constant fear, I have to get rid of the beast folk threat as soon as possible." At point, Donglo suddenly whispered a report from inside the pet space. "Master, she's lying." Varys could not help letting out a soft laugh. "This princess really is terrible at being honest. She knows this is practically suicidal, and she still wants to gamble on it." It was exactly after seeing through Lilia's plan that Varys suddenly came up with an interesting idea. "Do you want to learn my skills?" Lilia froze where she stood. Before she could even say anything, she realized she was somehow standing beneath a gigantic tree glowing with a faint blue radiance, while countless branches overhead shimmered with different skill icons like stars across the night sky. That was the divine artifact, the Kabbalah Tree of Life, formed from the very first sprout born at the top of the origin tree. Its sole function was to simulate anything in existence, aside from other divine artifacts and living beings. Lilia did not even need to think. Flowing wind, air veil, wind slash, and one skill after another turned into streams of data and poured straight into her mind. But after barely 2.5 minutes, Lilia suddenly let out a scream and dropped hard to her knees. Varys had clearly expected this. She merely raised a brow. "Your level's too low. Being greedy won't do you any favors." Hearing that, Lilia ignored how miserable she looked and endured the stabbing pain in her mind as she bowed respectfully to Varys. "I still cannot determine whether you truly are the divine being spoken of by the Holy Kingdom. But I, Lilia McKelland, will remember everything you have granted me for the rest of my life, teacher." Varys immediately waved that off. "Let's not go with teacher. Just call me Big Sister. And seriously, what even is this Holy Kingdom? I'm not some saint." With that, she stood up and pulled Lilia over to the dressing table. "Still, now that you technically count as my disciple, I'll give you one more little gift." Lilia instantly looked embarrassed. "You've already done so much for me." Varys only smiled faintly. "Forget God's sainthood and the throne for a second. We're friends now too, aren't we?" Lilia answered softly. "Yes, Big Sister Varys." After a brief period of rest, Lilia quickly sat down with Ha to discuss a surprise strike plan. Since they had moved out light and brought no ships with them, the only way to infiltrate Beastfolk territory was to disguise themselves as merchants and risk slipping in from the west along the Blackwater River. Off to the side, Varys immediately caught the important part. "So basically, all we need is a ship, right?" A short while later, with a thunderous rumble, Varys' so-called Noah's Ark No. 1 was already waiting quietly at the harbor, staring at the colossal 3-masted warship in front of them. Ha genuinely fell silent for a moment. Just how many ridiculous things was Miss Varys still hiding? Varys, of course, had no interest in explaining any of it. She just waved a hand. "Don't overthink it. Let's get moving." Ha got yanked forward so hard by Lilia that she nearly stumbled flat on her face. Wait, what? It had only been one night. How had Lilia suddenly gotten this much stronger? Under Lilia's command, Noah's Ark No. 1 slowly departed the harbor, but they had not been sailing for long before the ever-alert Lilia suddenly shouted, "Battle stations!" Everyone looked ahead and saw that, at some point, a massive shell-like back had surfaced on the water, completely blocking every possible route forward. Then an overbearing voice thundered out from ahead. "I am Nissarian, son of the great lord of the Black River, the demonic dragon Nessatrik." At the same time, inside the pet space, Donglo, who had been bored out of her mind, let out a lazy yawn. "These annoying humans have me stuck in this boring place all day. Isn't there anything fun at all?" But the instant she muttered that, A ripple ran through the space, and Donglo instantly shifted back into human form and lunged forward. Nasarian blurted out in terror. That aura? A dragon bloodline even higher than my father's? The bright look on Donglo's face darkened in an instant, but just as quickly, she switched back to a sweet smile and turned to Varys. Master, where did you catch this old turtle for my dinner? And you even delivered it personally. You're way too good to me. Varys walked over and sat beside her, casually patting her on the head. Be good. This one isn't food. Then she tapped the hard shell beneath her and asked in a calm tone, So why did you drop to your knees the second you saw me? Do you know who I am? Nasarian stared at the pet space in total shock, his voice trembling. Praise the demon god. This divine realm is proof enough. You truly are one of the gods. May I ask what exactly happened among the gods? Those words only deepened the confusion in Varys' heart. What exactly were these so-called gods? Could there really be other transmigrators in this world besides her? While thinking it over, she suddenly remembered the fragment she had obtained not long ago, so Varys held it out in front of Nasarian, testing him. Do you recognize this? Nasarian's pupil shrank violently. It's the gemstone from Lady Olivia's staff. How could it have shattered like this? That instantly sent a shock through Lilia. Nessatric, the beast folk, a demonic dragon. Could this creature's father be tied to the beast folk leadership? Meanwhile, back at the beast folk supply camp, Kinnear was whistling in boredom while grumbling to herself. So what if Radon beat me once? Did the High Priestess really have to dump me here guarding grain? But in the next second, she suddenly caught the faint smell of something burning in the air, and her brow immediately furrowed. The camp was way too quiet. So where was that smoke coming from? The instant she stepped out of the tent, a sea of flames filled the sky, and Kinnear froze on the spot in shock. Enemy attack? Why didn't anyone sound the alarm? But in the very next second, a bright red bloom of blood suddenly burst open in her chest. Hwa slowly let out a breath, her tone cold and flat. Enemy commander eliminated. Right after that, Varys appeared beside the corpse. She glanced down at it and actually sounded a little regretful. Nice. Still warm. Imagine getting written off after only 2 nights of screen time. Total waste of the artist's character design. She lifted her staff, preparing to cast a spell, then abruptly turned her head and looked toward a completely unremarkable corner. She saw me? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. No one should have been able to detect them after they erased their presence. And yet, that suffocating sense of danger was so overwhelming that Prakaka fled the scene with everything they had, throwing every escape method they knew into the mix. Seeing that, Varys curled her lips slightly. What a timid little rat. The moment Prakaka escaped Varys' line of sight, they rushed to find the High Priestess. The princess has already broken into the rear camp. The High Priestess's expression changed instantly. How could she be that fast? Prakaka snarled through gritted teeth. I saw it with my own eyes. This is nearly a month ahead of the pace you predicted. The High Priestess's gaze flickered. Then she let out a mocking sneer. So you ran back here with your tail between your legs? You joined the Eternal Throne, and you still couldn't even find a chance to strike? The moment Prakaka recalled Varys' seemingly ordinary gaze, one that had chilled them straight to the bone, Prakaka shuddered instinctively. I just didn't want to alert the enemy. Our side is fully prepared. Let's just hope you don't screw this up. The High Priestess gave a contemptuous snort. Naturally. Pass down my order. The entire army attacks Myriad Ravine Fortress at once. What none of them realized was that every single detail of their carefully prepared strategy had already been relayed to Varys word for word by the light elemental spirit attached to Prakaka. The Eternal Throne? What kind of thing is that? In response to Varys' question, Hwa answered casually. A bunch of lunatics trying to use necromancy to gain eternal life. Put simply, it's a cult, but the 12 throne bearers in it are all legendary rank. As they spoke, Hwa had already gotten a decent read on the enemy camp's condition. Lilia's face turned cold as she muttered, So my royal brothers really did send humans to work with the beast folk just to get rid of me. Hwa could not care less about the politics. She only said one thing, cold as steel. For her highness, we kill every last one of those traitors. As for Varys, she had never been all that interested in personally throwing hands. So she simply crouched next to a pile of supplies nearby and started inspecting them instead. That teleportation circle is ridiculously crude. So this is how they've been transporting grain? But just then, Hua's voice suddenly rang out behind her, filled with alarm. Lilia! In the next instant, one red and one blue streak of sword light exploded right in front of Lilia. Little Hwa, it's been years, but your swordsmanship has gotten even sharper. Hwa answered with nothing but cold contempt. And yet you still haven't improved at all, master. Hearing that, Lilia could not stop herself from gasping. Hwa's master? The one known as the greatest offensive swordmaster in the world? Wasn't he supposed to have fallen long ago? As for Varys, Her eyes instantly lit up with the pure excitement of someone watching a juicy drama unfold. Oh, now this was finally getting interesting. That's right. I did die long ago. Antonio bared his teeth in a grin. But the Eternal Throne granted me endless power. My name is Antonio. Princess Lilia. Today will be the day you die. Lilia immediately shouted, Sister Ha, fall back. We walked straight into a trap. But Ha only answered in a low voice. Sorry, Lilia. She stepped forward one pace at a time, her voice steady and heavy. Part of the reason I followed you to the front was to uncover the truth behind the Eternal Throne. No matter how much you curse me for this later, I have to settle things with him myself. Lilia's eyes instantly reddened with frustration. You idiot. Is that really how little faith you have in me? I don't care why you're doing this, and I don't care what you're trying to accomplish. You'll always be my best friend, so you'd better survive. But to Antonio, the whole scene looked like nothing more than a painfully boring little drama. Did you forget how pathetically you crawled away from me back then? And this time, it isn't just me. 2 throne bearers, plus the 3 legendary fighters in front of you. None of you are leaving here alive. Hua only let out a disdainful snort. No matter how many there are, the one who gets to face you is me. The instant those words fell, the 2 of them turned into streaks of light and crossed dozens of meters in the blink of an eye. Varys, who had been watching the show the whole time, finally raised a hand and stopped Lilia from joining in. This is still too soon for you. Lilia immediately puffed out her cheeks in frustration. Varys spoke as casually as ever. Those walking corpses are perfect practice targets, so I'll leave them to you. As for these little monsters, I think I'll play with them myself. The instant she finished speaking, a blood-red arena erupted from the ground. Within this absolute domain locked down by her skill, no one could easily escape. With this, those little rats who loved hiding in the corners would no longer be able to run off and interfere with her cute little disciple. Realizing they had been found yet again, Prakaka had no choice but to reveal themselves and face Varys head-on. You don't seriously think this is all the strength we have, do you? At the same time, perched on a branch near the Beastfolk camp, Mavis stared at Lilia with a deeply puzzled look on her face. Strange. Why can't I see your death? She murmured, before her expression turned icy. Whatever. Die. In the very next second, a crimson slash flashed straight across Lilia's throat. Meanwhile, inside the dueling arena, Varys was curiously poking at the bandages lashing at her from every direction. So this isn't even a skill? Don't tell me your real body is actually these bandages. After being treated like a toy for half the fight, Balk completely lost it and roared at his side. Seventh Throne, why are you just standing there watching? He really should have kept quiet, because the second he yelled, Gulatada mentally collapsed as well, pleading to Varys, I was blind and stupid, my lord. Please spare me. Varys only gave him a flat look. You're just a useless coward. Besides, you were never getting past one of the kings anyway. The moment she said that, there was a sharp burst of sound, and the so-called king instantly shattered into a heap of junk. Varys nodded to herself thoughtfully. Come to think of it, I can't actively dismiss this space. Still, that's fine. I can just revive you later. Back in the camp, the more Mavis fought, the stranger things felt. The intel had clearly stated Lilia was only capable of amateur-level tricks, yet in reality, she was already fighting at a level comparable to a mithril rank adventurer. And with Flying Swallow covering her, Lilia looked a little battered at most. Catching her breath, Lilia mocked. Is that so? Then thanks for the compliment. Mavis had no patience left for talking. Even so, you've lived long enough. The strike came so fast that Lilia had no chance to react. But at that exact moment, a black shadow shot through the night. Hua landed with an easy smile curling at her lips. You okay? Sorry. I'm late. Mavis's expression darkened. So Antonio had failed too? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The High Priestess's warning echoed back through her mind. If anything went wrong, abandoning the mission was preferable to dying there. Retreat immediately. Forgive me, High Priestess. In the next instant, she drove her dagger straight into her own chest. A split second later, a massive eyeball formed entirely from deathly energy opened behind her. Seeing that, Hua instantly drew her bow to stop her. You're trying to use the brink of death to summon something? But she was still a step too late. Within a death storm so vast, it blotted out the moon. A grotesque figure slowly descended, wielding a black-purple scythe, and made entirely of bone. The spirit of death, Purple Omen Star. And the first thing it said after arriving, looking in Lilia's direction, was, but why can I still not see your death? Purple Omen Star stiffly turned toward one corner of the domain. You altered her fate. Layer upon layer of magic circles flared to life at once. Then a holy goddess with a face identical to Varys revealed herself before everyone. Varys spoke softly. Let there be light. Purple Omen Star tightened its grip on the scythe. What exactly are you? Varys remained calm. Lilia, Take the others and leave first. As for you, it gets tiring always being the one who has to introduce herself. Why don't you state your own name first for once? Purple Omen Star answered in a low, solemn voice. I descended here through Mavis's summoning. I am the ruler of death, Purple Omen Star. I am a god. Varys repeated the word under her breath. A god. I see. And my name is Varys, and I'm the person who's about to beat you up. Purple Omen Star let out a cold snort. Ignorant mortal. Then witnessed the power of death's laws. Final echo. With a violent, blood-reeking gust, the scythe came crashing down at Varys. Varys, meanwhile, just stood there and couldn't even be bothered to move. Sorry, my gear has a passive effect. If a single hit doesn't deal enough damage, it gets nullified automatically. So maybe stop using area attacks and try your strongest single-target move instead. Purple Omen Star completely lost it on the spot. Impossible. Even a god couldn't tank that head-on with nothing but their body. Annihilation Death Ray. And yet, even facing that attack, Varys stayed exactly where she was, not showing the slightest intention of dodging, but the crimson beam fired from the giant eye stopped dead dozens of meters away from her, unable to move forward even an inch. So rude. Do none of you people ever let someone finish talking? Varys spread her hands and sneered with open disdain. And besides, this so-called law of death is just instant kill damage, right? That's it? Purple Omen Star instantly flew into a rage. You can actually ignore death itself? Varys replied, as casually as if she were discussing the weather. As long as the level gap is big enough, sure. Honestly, a power like that is basically just a niche gimmick. Silence. Forbidden spell. World's End Sevenfold Ring. Getting interrupted again. Varys sighed and lazily lifted a hand. A skill that hasn't even reached level 100? And you still dare call yourself a god? In the next instant, a seemingly ordinary holy beam shot out and pierced straight through that so-called forbidden spell in a heartbeat. Before dispersing, Purple Omen Star could only force out one final terrified scream. You monster! Varys just spread her hands with an innocent look. That's honestly so rude. Who calls a girl a monster? I'm just an ordinary little priest. Then she lowered her gaze toward Mavis nearby. As for this little fox, forget it. I wasn't that interested in taking in one of these kings anyway. Faced with such a total collapse, the High Priestess had no choice but to grit her teeth and order a full retreat. With Donglow's help, Varys and the others soon made it back to Myriad Ravine Fortress. Donglow, who had been cooped up inside for ages, was finally let back out, only to show up with a sulky face. I didn't even get a chance to join the fight this round. Varys laughed and rubbed her head. All right, it's pretty much all taken care of. Time for us to move on. Donglow was just enjoying the long overdue head pats when an urgent voice suddenly called out from behind them. Please, wait. As she activated stealth, Donglow could not help muttering under her breath. Why is it this person again? Lilia hurried over and offered a token. This is a symbol of my status. If you show it anywhere within the United Human Kingdom, it will be treated as if I myself were present. It may not be overwhelmingly useful, but it should at least spare you a fair bit of unnecessary trouble. Varys did not bother refusing. She simply nodded. In that case, I'll gladly accept it. At the very moment she took the token, Lilia suddenly leaned in and placed a light kiss on her cheek. Please don't forget me. That one move instantly sent Donglow into silent outrage. After properly parting ways with Lilia, Varys casually found a natural hot spring and decided to take a bath. She turned her head slightly. Donglow, aren't you coming in too? Donglow puffed up her cheeks and grumbled. But I just washed up a few days ago. Varys sounded helpless. Even so, if you go several days without washing, you'll still smell a little, won't you? But seeing how stubbornly resistant Donglow was, she did not press the issue. Instead, Varys combed her fingers through her wet hair and muttered in annoyance. What a pain. How do girls even wash their hair properly? Donglow instantly turned away in a huff. Dumb master. Even if I jump straight into this spring, I'm absolutely not helping you wash it. And yet, despite the big talk, she obediently ended up giving Varys a full private hair-washing massage anyway. In the middle of it, Varys suddenly asked, almost out of nowhere, why were you upset earlier? Donglow's eyes instantly darted away, and she hurriedly turned her head to the side. I wasn't upset at all. Varys stared at her for a moment, then slowly raised a brow. Was it because of Lilia? Donglow instantly broke inside, furiously exploding in her own head. Damn it! That human actually stole a kiss from Master. That was way too much. Thinking back to what had just happened, Donglow looked so wronged she seemed ready to burst into tears on the spot. She was clearly the one who had been here first. Master was supposed to be hers. Once Varys confirmed that this was pure jealousy, she decisively changed the subject. Do you still remember what Nessarian told us earlier? Donglow, however, was still hung up on something else. Wasn't Master talking about that emergency ration? Varys immediately pressed a hand to her forehead. I told you already, that is not your snack. Forget eat.do, you still remember the demon god Olivia he mentioned, and his father, the demonic dragon Nessatric? Donglo blinked in confusion. What does that have to do with us? Varys lowered her voice, deep in thought. If everything he said was true, then it means gods really did exist in this world. They've just all vanished now. Donglo apparently thought Varys was worried those gods might be too strong, so she immediately burrowed into the towel and declared with confidence that old turtle was already pathetic enough. There's no way its father could beat me either. Then she quickly added, actually, even my child would be enough to beat some so-called demon dragon. Varys' temple twitched. Why are you talking nonsense again? Since when do you have a child? Donglo leaned in with deadly seriousness. If Master wants one, I wouldn't mind helping Master make one. After a brief moment of stunned silence, Varys heavily patted Donglo on the shoulder and retorted in a grave tone. Donglo, do you understand what a biological impossibility is? Donglo tilted her head, looking utterly innocent. Nope. By evening, 2 black-robed figures had appeared in Flame Dragon City. Little miss, first time in Flame Dragon City? A divine dragon doll is only 6 copper coins. Varys squeezed the doll in her hand and asked naturally, Grandma, did dragons really appear in Flame Dragon City in the past? The old woman laughed heartily. Those are all just legends. No one has ever truly seen the divine dragon. Still, the reason Flame Dragon City became so prosperous really does have a lot to do with the divine dragon's power. I've heard our local specialty, Scarlet Refined Copper, was formed under the influence of the divine dragon's blood. Varys nodded thoughtfully. I see. Then give me 2. While Varys was seriously gathering information, Donglo quietly slipped her tail out from beneath the robe, then lightly wrapped it around Varys' ankle. If Master likes dragons that much, then I can always. Before she could finish, Varys casually smacked her twice, and Donglo instantly behaved. Don't do something that obvious. If someone sees it, it'll be a hassle. Right after that, Varys headed to the city lord's residence according to plan. I heard you're looking for a physician? The guard at the gate, Daniel, took one look at the card she handed over, and the stern expression on his face immediately softened. Yes, miss. Are you the physician? Varys casually pulled back her black hood, then let out a rare little proud hum. I know a bit. Just a bit. Daniel politely led her into the reception hall and explained in a lower voice. A lot of physicians have already come to look at the strange illness in the city, but none of them have had any results. Miss Varys, are you really confident? Varys waved a hand, signaling him to hurry up and report her arrival. If I came here, then of course I have confidence. Hearing her say that, a warm but serious voice immediately called out from behind the doors. Daniel, don't judge people so quickly based on appearances. Daniel sighed and pushed open the doors, still muttering quietly to Varys. Even if you can't cure it later, it's fine. Just say you did your best. The city lord won't blame you. As the massive doors swung completely open, and after dismissing Daniel, Nestea gave Varys a formal bow. I can tell that you are a holy healer. I earnestly ask that you please save the people of Flame Dragon City. Varys looked up at her with open curiosity. How could you tell? Nestea gave a slight bow. Forgive my rudeness. My name is Nestea Simir. In addition to serving as the city lord of Flame Dragon City, I also hold the rank of second count in the United Human Kingdom, and I am a god blessed. Because of my gift, I can see the invisible aura surrounding people. Those who have committed many evil deeds are usually wrapped in ominous crimson malice. But a warm, holy radiance like the one surrounding Miss Varys. Only someone who has healed countless thousands could possibly possess something like that. Varys blinked, her expression turning a little strange. Countless thousands? Was this somehow counting all the time she had spammed healing during party raids back in the game? Because if that was the standard, then the number would be far beyond mere thousands. Just then, Varys suddenly felt the hand holding hers tighten slightly. Nestea's movements also stiffened as her gaze shifted toward Donglo. Come to think of it, and this one is? Varys answered casually. Her? She's my pet, my maid, and my bodyguard. Donglo merely swept Nestea with a calm glance. Yet that alone made the city lord's entire body tense up. That crushing sense of pressure, like being stared down by a dragon, made it instinctively clear that this was a powerhouse who had seen endless slaughter. Under Donglo's almost tangible pressure, Nestea finally forced the conversation back to the real issue. Meanwhile, inside the church, 2 more people rushed in carrying a stretcher. Bishop, a new patient just arrived. Isaac turned his head with visible exhaustion, then let out a helpless sigh. Another elder? Put them on the bed inside first. Looking at the tragic scene inside the church from just outside the doors, Nestea could not help but grieve in her heart. Was she really only able to stand there and watch these people die? Bang! The closed doors were violently pushed open. Nestea strode inside. Bishop Isaac, I've brought a physician. Let them try to save the patients next. Isaac's expression changed instantly. City Lord, what exactly are you thinking? The anger he had been suppressing for days finally burst out. Do you know how many people have died of dragon blood sickness these past few days? I may not be the strongest priest in the temple, but no matter what, I'm still better than some random roadside healer you picked up. If you still refuse to request aid from the kingdom, then I'll report directly to the upper ranks of the temple myself and ask for stronger clergy to be sent here. Facing an Isaac who was practically at the edge of collapse, Nestea could only lower herself and plead softly, "You're right, but please let me try one last time." Isaac quietly pulled his mask higher, his voice rough with fatigue. "I don't care what you're trying to do. I just want to save more people." He then turned to Varys and Donglo. "So, ladies, please stop humoring the City Lord's recklessness." But in the very next second, Isaac suddenly cried out, "What are you doing? Stop! Elderly patients suffering from this disease can't withstand healing magic. Yet that pure surge of magic flashed by in an instant, not even leaving him enough time to finish the sentence. Tight. How is that even possible?" Isaac felt like the sky had just collapsed over his head. Even his strongest healing spell had done absolutely nothing. Yet this person had casually waved a hand and completely dispelled the strange power still lingering inside the patient. Varys had been about to explain that what she just used was not ordinary healing magic at all, but Nestea suddenly squeezed in beside her in excitement. "Miss Varys, then I'll leave every patient here in your care." Varys only gave her a calm glance. Understood. Meanwhile, Isaac had instantly been reduced to little more than forgotten background scenery. Isaac quietly pulled out the silver-gray emblem that represented his status as a bishop. Even his mastery of holy light magic had fallen short of that young girl's. Did that mean his faith in the goddess wasn't strong enough? No, impossible. There had to still be a place where he could be useful. It was deep into the night before Varys finally found a place to settle Donglo down. "Nestea invited me to dinner. You stay in the room and don't go wandering around." Donglo panicked immediately. Wait, Master, why aren't you taking me with you?" Varys didn't even turn back as she soothed her. "Be good. I'll bring you something tasty." Watching Varys' figure gradually disappear into the distance, Donglo wilted on the spot, looking like a neglected, pouting little wife. "Master actually left me behind here just because of that Nestea person." No, that must be it. That bad woman saw how cute Master is and wants to do something shameless. Master, please don't fall into her trap." Elsewhere, Nestea raised her glass and spoke in a gentle tone. "Miss Varys, I must once again thank you for everything you've done. But where is your attendant? Didn't she come with you?" Varys gave a blank-faced nod, which counted as an answer. Seeing that, Nestea leaned in slightly, her tone turning deeply meaningful. "So, it's just the two of us here now?" Varys didn't so much as shift her gaze. She simply looked ahead and replied calmly, "Yes, since it's just the two of us, then surely the City Lord can finally explain what this so-called dragon blood sickness really is." Nestea's expression stiffened for a split second. "I'm not sure what you mean." Varys spoke evenly. "When I was treating the patients, I already learned from that bishop that even he had never heard of this so-called dragon blood sickness before. It only got that name because the patients developed scale-like blotches on their bodies, and because Flame Dragon City has always had legends about a fallen red dragon. On the surface, that explanation sounds reasonable enough. But what I really want to ask is this, City Lord. Why is there actual dragon blood inside those patients? Calling it a disease doesn't feel quite right. If anything, it looks more like some kind of genetic evolution." After a moment of silence, Nestea lowered her voice. "Miss Varys, I am truly grateful for everything you have done for Flame Dragon City. But please remember this. Dragon blood sickness is still a sickness. Your role is to treat it. Don't keep digging any deeper. That would be better for you and for us." Varys lifted a hand and lightly drew it across her own throat, speaking as casually as if she were joking. "I honestly thought you were about to suggest silencing me permanently." Nestea immediately denied it. "How could I? You are our benefactor." Varys gently swirled the wine in her glass and said nothing more. Fortunately, this City Lord didn't seem to despise dragons, nor did she rant about slaying them the way some people would. Otherwise, Varys truly didn't want anything to happen that might affect Donglo's mood. After all, Donglo was the most important companion she had in this world. Meanwhile, sometime earlier, inside the Adventurers Guild, someone was trying desperately to persuade the person in front of them. "So what I'm saying is, we really need your help." Cecilia was visibly flustered. But I'm only a trainee knight. Why me?" The recruiter immediately piled on the praise with a perfectly serious face. "Because I could tell at a glance that you're a holy knight with limitless potential. Barrett, you agree with that too, right?" Just then, a strange sound came from outside the room. The recruiter sharply lowered their voice. "Who's out there?" The wooden table gave a slight shake, and Barrett's whole body instantly tensed up. Forcing himself to stay calm, he stammered an answer to the previous question. All right. We've already found out that the source of the dragon blood sickness that's been throwing the whole city into panic is probably connected to the fallen Dragon Valley, where we carried out that earlier mission. So, for the sake of helping the people of the city, we really need a dependable holy knight like you. Big sis. Please join us, okay? Barrett let out a helpless sigh. Their captain was putting on the cute act again. Cecilia instantly switched to an expression of pure devotion. I see in my name is Cecilia, and I come from Angel City. I originally set out on this journey to train myself in the way of the night. I just happened to run into the outbreak of dragon blood sickness. This has to be divine guidance. The shift in attitude was so dramatic that even Firos looked caught off guard for a second. All right. Exactly. That's it. And at that exact moment, Varys and Donglo happened to walk into the Adventurers Guild, passing right by them. Donglo could not help asking in a low voice, Master, why are we even here? Varys answered casually. The Adventurers Guild is basically a mandatory stop for transmigrators. We're heading to a lot of cities after this, so registering as adventurers now will make everything a lot easier. The guild receptionist saw the two of them and immediately came over with a bright smile. Welcome. What can I help you with today? Varys raised a hand toward the quest board. I want to take the quest about the monster disturbance in Fallen Dragon Valley. The receptionist looked troubled. That quest can only be accepted by high-rank adventurers. May I ask what your current ranks are? Donglo promptly yanked off her hood and declared with all the pride in the world, We're not even registered yet. Impressive, right? The receptionist's smile stiffened for a split second, but she still explained patiently. If you're only registering now, you can't take a quest like that yet. Varys casually pressed a hand against Donglo before she could act up and asked calmly, Then, how do we rank up? Aside from earning points by completing quests, you can also rank up directly if you defeat our testing examiner. Before the explanation was even finished, bang. Donglo had already kicked the warrior in charge of testing straight into the ceiling. Cold sweat broke out on the receptionist's forehead, but before she could even recover, Varys's calm, almost gentle voice sounded right by her ear. Perfect. My turn. Holy magic instantly rippled through the room. The soul of the warrior who had just been launched into the air had only just begun to slip loose, but Varys forcibly shoved it right back into his body with a max-level healing spell. Only then did Varys smile faintly. So, Miss Receptionist, can we take the quest now? One hand brought absolute brute force. The other brought a miracle of resurrection. The combination completely overwhelmed the receptionist. Oh, of course you can. Not long after that, at the outer edge of Fallen Dragon Valley, Donglo yawned in boredom, while lazily whipping her tail around, casually splattering dozens of goblins to death. Master, why don't we just fly straight into the valley? And why won't you let me release my dragon aura? These trash mobs are seriously annoying. The moment she finished speaking, Donglo suddenly turned to look behind them. Master, something's coming our way. At the same time, an anxious shout rang out from the distance. Hey, you two up ahead! Why are you still standing there? Run! Varys cast Donglo a flat glance. Heard that. You handle it. The instant those words left her mouth, Donglo had already flashed straight in front of the approaching monster, and yet all she did was lightly tap the ground with her foot. A berserk wave of air pressure crashed down, forcing the enormous pillbug-like monster to a violent, screeching halt on the spot. Covered in cold sweat, the creature slowly raised its head with only one thought left in its mind. Was it still not too late to beg for mercy? In the next second, a wave of pure, absolute destructive force ripped through every layer of resistance, grinding the creature's massive body, along with its regrets, into powder. Firos immediately hurried over wearing a bright, flattering smile. Wow, we really owe you for that. Otherwise, we'd have been finished back there. Are you two here to investigate Fallen Dragon Valley too? We're locals, so we know this area like the back of our hand. How about I guide you? When the time comes, we'll split the reward 50-50. Cecilia immediately turned toward Firos in surprise. Wait, didn't you say you were from somewhere else before? Firos had not even figured out how to explain that away before noticing Varys already looking over with that same detached expression. With your level of strength, dealing with that monster would have been troublesome, but not impossible. So, you deliberately lured it over here, didn't you? The smile on Firas's face stiffened, but Firas still forced out a laugh. Pretty lady, what are you talking about? We were obviously just panicking while being chased and happened to run into you two by coincidence. Varys couldn't be bothered to waste breath on him and cut straight to the point. The traces of your mana buildup are way too obvious. It's honestly embarrassing how easy you are to read. Firos clicked his tongue in irritation. Wouldn't it have been easier if you just did as you were told? Then Firos pulled off the wig and tossed it aside. You really think knowing a few cheap tricks makes you special? Cecilia froze. Little Firos, you're a boy? But Varys clearly didn't care about that at all and coldly interrupted. That doesn't matter. They're bandits who prey on adventurers. We strike first." Hearing their earlier provocation, Donglo lowered her head, her expression turning terrifyingly cold. In the next instant, blazing dragon fire covered the entire valley. "You dared insult my master." Before the words had even fully landed, a steaming, still-beating heart had already appeared in Donglo's hand. One of the bandits dropped dead on the spot. The sight instantly scared Firos so badly that he collapsed to the ground. No, it's all a misunderstanding." He scrambled and crawled over to Varys' feet. "Pretty lady, please, spare us." But in the next second, a thick dragon tail had already hoisted him into the air. Firos could clearly feel his neck being crushed bit by bit. Only then did Cecilia react. You killed them?" Varys answered calmly. "They attacked me. I fought back. What exactly is the problem?" Cecilia still tried to protest. But the laws of the gods," Varys replied flatly. "We were the ones who just saved you. And now you want to lecture me about gods and laws?" Cecilia stammered. Even so, there should have been a trial first." Varys didn't bother listening any further. She turned around with Donglo and left. She had no interest in arguing with a naive little saint type. After leaving Cecilia behind, Varys also lost interest in exploring slowly, so she and Donglo flew straight into the depths of the valley. Looking at the sight before her, Varys murmured, "If that old lady could see this, she'd probably be happy." Floating above the massive dragon-shaped skeleton, she blinked at Donglo. So the legend of Flame Dragon City was real? Donglo's true form was a holy crystal dragon, one of the 3 highest bloodlines among dragons in Illusory Realm. Yet all this time, they had never encountered any power above level 100. So why had one of Donglo's own kind died deep inside this valley? Varys turned and asked, "Donglo, don't you feel anything seeing a corpse of your own kind?" Donglo answered without much interest. "What's there to feel? If it died here, then it was probably just weak. The only rule dragons believe in is that if you don't fight, you don't survive. So even if something happened to me one day," Varys didn't even get to finish before Donglo, who had looked so proud a second ago, was suddenly on the verge of tears. Varys immediately corrected herself. "All right, I was just making an example to my fault. I won't say things like that again, so don't cry, okay?" While calming Donglo down, Varys kept staring at the dragon bones and thinking. At first, she had assumed a living dragon had spread dragon blood sickness to create more followers. But this skeleton had clearly been lying here for at least 100 years. After a moment, Varys gave up and said, "Forget it. I'm clearly not cut out to be a detective. You may as well explain it yourself. You've been following us from the moment we left the city, so I assume you have something to say, City Lord." With that, she raised her staff and dispelled the concealment magic hidden nearby. Nestia revealed herself and gave an awkward smile. "I thought I was hiding pretty well," then she sighed. "The way you handled those bandits earlier, that was meant as a message to me too, wasn't it?" Varys spread her hands and denied it outright. "Nothing that complicated. They wanted to kill me, so they should have been prepared to be killed themselves. Clear grudges, clear consequences. That's all." Nestia bowed. "I trust Miss Varys' character and strength, so I hope that once you understand the truth, you won't keep digging into this." Then she took a deep breath. "To explain it, I have to start 300 years ago. Back then," Varys cut her off immediately. "Hold on. If this is going to take a while, could you keep it short?" Nestia's mouth twitched a little, but she still nodded. Back then, Flame Dragon City had only been a tiny village with a few hundred people. But one day, 2 giant beasts with power close to that of gods clashed in Fallen Dragon Valley. One of them was the red dragon later remembered in local legend. During that battle, the 2 monsters scattered terrifying light and blood everywhere, and the shockwaves alone turned everything within 100 miles into dead land. That was when dragon blood sickness first broke out more than 300 years ago. Just as Miss Varys had said, dragon blood sickness was, in essence, a transformation that pushed humans toward a half-dragon form. But the villagers, who had just suffered under the devastation caused by dragons, could never accept that explanation. So the first count of the Samir family had no choice but to leave the village and follow the pole inside the bloodline all the way into the depths of Fallen Dragon Valley. "I never expected to find a being in this place of dead silence that could endure the power of my blood." The dying red dragon spoke to her. "Interesting. With this, you can return to human form, but you won't be the only one affected. The altered bloodline will be passed down through generation after generation. When that time comes, what will become of you and your descendants? I look forward to seeing it." After the red dragon died, the young woman gave the blazing orb it left behind a name, the Heart of the Red Dragon. Hearing that, Varys asked directly, "I see. Then where is the heart of the red dragon now?" Nestia looked away guiltily. "It was stolen. Half a month ago, an unknown group took advantage of my absence on official business, badly wounded the guardian beast, and stole the heart of the red dragon. That's what triggered dragon blood sickness in the city. But the strange part is, before Miss Varys arrived, I had already enforced isolation measures. By all logic, the remaining residents should only have fallen ill after coming into contact with a strong dragon aura. The more Varys listened, the more she realized Nestia was subtly pointing at Donglo. She quickly cut in. Hold it. If this keeps going, I'm going to start sounding like the villain spreading the virus. Do you have any clues about the thieves? Nestia nodded. I only know that one of them had an emerald green snake tattoo on the wrist. If you find them, please take the heart of the red dragon away with you. That thing is both a treasure and a curse. After more than 300 years, it's time this came to an end. Varys closed her eyes and gave a small nod. I see. Then I'll accept the request. With that, she tossed a red dragon doll to the city lord, grabbed Donglo by the tail, and hurried toward the exit. Don't worry. Leave it to me, Miss Isla. Looking at the red dragon doll that had landed in her arms, Nestia, having her true name from 3 centuries ago called out, could not help but let out a relieved smile. Honestly, I go by Nestia now. After many days of travel, Lilia finally returned to the royal palace. But after she finished recounting what had happened, the second prince spoke in an extremely calm tone. So what you're saying is that someone present here is behind all of this? Before anyone else could react, the third prince kicked over the chair beside him and stormed out of the chamber in anger. I couldn't care less about whatever mess you ran into. The fourth prince looked ready to say something to smooth things over, when a small blue figure suddenly came running in from outside and threw herself into Lilia's arms. Big sister Lilia, welcome back. I heard you drove off all those nasty beast folk by yourself. Is it true? Lilia hurriedly waved her hands. Of course not. The story's gotten way too exaggerated, but the little princess, Mona, clearly didn't care about that part at all. Then did Big Sister meet someone she likes, just like in the storybooks? That question instantly made Lilia remember the moment when Varys had personally fastened the necklace around her neck. Lilia's face flushed as she panicked on the spot. No, of course not. Mona, what kind of strange books have you been reading now? After all the chaos, Lilia finally got some time to rest late into the night. But the moment she lay down, she heard a faint sound outside the window. Who's there? Bob poked her head out in a sneaky way. Yo, long time no see. The fact that you noticed my presence at all means you've really improved. Lilia had no mood for that. Why did you disappear without saying a word? I was worried sick. Sorry. Before Lilia could finish complaining, Hua suddenly dropped to one knee. Back then, I deliberately hid information because I wanted to track down my master after he joined the Eternal Throne. If Miss Varys hadn't been there, you really might have died. Hua lowered her head deeply. I'm sorry. This is all my fault. Someone as selfish as me doesn't deserve to be your friend. After hearing that, Lilia actually relaxed a little. It's okay, Sister Hua. I relied on your strength too, so that makes us even, doesn't it? Seeing that Hua still didn't dare to look up, Lilia leaned in closer. No. You need to tell me properly right now. Do you really see me as a friend? Hearing that, Hua suddenly blushed and muttered softly. But that's exactly what I like about you. Still, if you don't punish me, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life. I see. Lilia gave a small laugh. All right then, Sister Hua, raise your head first. Hua didn't understand why, but she still did as told, and suddenly felt a sharp flick right between her brows. By the time Hua rubbed her forehead and came back to her senses, Lilia had already bounced back onto the bed and was smiling. That's your punishment. From now on, you'd better serve me properly. In that moment, Hua was so moved that she could barely speak. After a brief silence, Hua couldn't help but say, but I'm still worried about Miss Varys. I don't even know where they are right now. If we could get Miss Varys' support, then the throne would definitely... Lilia raised a hand and cut Hua off. They're definitely out there having some grand, magnificent adventure right now. How could I interrupt them? Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the gates of Keelan City, where a large number of soldiers were frantically searching for something. Damn it, where did those two run off to? As for Varys, who was supposedly having that grand adventure Lilia imagined, she and Donglo were currently hiding inside a wooden barrel, not daring to make a sound. Donglo asked quietly, Master, weren't we here to investigate the mystery of the Undying Phoenix? So why are we playing hide and seek? Varys gave a dry laugh. I'd like to know too. I clearly said we were supposed to keep a low profile. She recalled what had happened just outside the city earlier. A passerby had excitedly shouted, My God, could that be the once-in-a-century return of the Phoenix bird? And without a second thought, this little dragon girl had spread her wings and rushed straight at the bird. Just thinking about it now made Varys' mouth twitch. But inside the barrel, Donglo still looked completely justified. Didn't Master want to find the Phoenix? If I just catch it, then problem solved, right? Varys sighed weakly. And what happened instead? Your dragon aura scared it into flying all over the place, and before we even entered the city, we became wanted criminals. Now we have to sneak in hiding inside a merchant caravan's cargo barrel. Just then, that familiar figure appeared in the sky again. Donglo peeked out through the cracks in the barrel and blinked. Isn't that the same bird from before? Why is its head bald? Varys casually explained the bizarre biology of the world. When monsters with low intelligence suffer from extreme stress, they lose their hair and go bald. Once their minds snap, they ignore any gap in strength and dive bomb whoever caused them that stress. While the two of them were still hiding in the barrel, the guard captain outside, Oned, was already breaking out in a cold sweat. A third-rank monster! Get the goods out of here now! The caravan owner, Mr. Xavier, quickly looked back, but Annette realized the carriage had already been driven far away by his fleeing subordinates. He could only shout in despair, "Damn it!" From the distance, the heartless shout of a fleeing guard echoed back. "I'll take good care of your wife for you. Farewell, Captain Onette." Onette gritted his teeth and drew his bow at the monster. "Come on, you stupid bird. Boss Xavier, you'd better give me a raise after this." Smack! Onette didn't even get to fire a single arrow before the bird sent him flying with one flap of its wing. He crashed to the ground and looked on in despair as the bald bird lunged at him, completely failing to notice that one of the abandoned cargo barrels nearby had just been kicked open. In the next second, a small blue figure shot out and had a very literal heart-to-heart exchange with the bald bird by ripping its heart and lungs out. Onette still hadn't recovered from the sudden, bloody turn of events when a gentle voice sounded beside him. "How badly are you hurt? Do you need treatment?" After saving Annette, Varys and Donglo were invited into the merchant caravan's carriage. Varys rested her chin in her hand, looking disappointed. "So the rumor about the undying phoenix was fake too. What a letdown." Xavier smiled and explained, "That rumor exists specifically to attract tourists like you, miss. The so-called phoenix is really just an ordinary bird-type monster imported from the far eastern nation." As the mood inside the carriage relaxed, Onette, who was walking alongside, kept sneaking glances inside. After struggling with it for a while, he finally worked up the courage to approach the window. Miss Varys, I was hoping..." Swish. The carriage curtain was suddenly pulled open. Donglo gave him an extremely friendly look and dragged a finger across her own throat, cutting him off on the spot. Remembering Donglo's brutal, heart-ripping combat style from earlier, Onette broke out in a cold sweat. He quietly shrank back and endured his companions laughing at him. Xavier then asked, "By the way, where are you two ladies headed next?" "We're on our way back to the City of Courage. If it's on the same route, that'd be perfect." Varys thought for a moment before asking, "Mister, have you ever heard of the Forgotten Land?" Xavier's face changed immediately. "Are you sure that's really where you want to go?" He lowered his voice. "Hundreds of years ago, that place was still called the City of Glory, and its permanent population was over 1 million. But in a single night, every living thing in the city vanished without a trace. The whole place became a dead city instantly. The kingdom sent dozens of teams in to investigate, but not a single one ever came back alive. In the end, they had no choice but to completely seal off and abandon the area. If you keep heading south from here, you'll reach the edge of the Forgotten Land in about half a day." Onette, having just been shot down, quickly stepped up again to show off. "Miss Varys, the Forgotten Land is far too dangerous. Let me guide the two of you there." Varys stared at Onette through the window in silence for a long while. Just as he grew embarrassed and could barely keep his eager expression steady, she calmly asked, "What was your name again?" Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the Forgotten Land, Cecilia was leaning heavily on her greatsword and panting. She wiped her sweat. "At this rate, I should break through to Sky Rank in another month." For Holy Class fighters, there were only two real ways to grow stronger. One was to temper their will and offer even deeper faith to the gods. The other was to constantly eliminate evil. But remembering what had happened in Fallen Dragon Valley, Cecilia's eyes dimmed. Even with an artifact that let Big Sis draw out holy power beyond her normal limit, if the opponents were those two, then maybe even that still wouldn't be enough to win. When Cecilia finally came back to her senses from her messy thoughts, she abruptly realized that a bizarre, thick fog had already surrounded her. "Big sister, have you seen my mommy?" In the fog, the little girl who had appeared out of nowhere instantly scared Cecilia stiff. Cecilia turned around trembling, only to find a ghost knight covered in eerie blue flames, already fully charged and waiting to strike. The greatsword came crashing down, and the holy sword in Cecilia's hand shattered instantly. Her whole body was blasted dozens of meters away. Cecilia clutched the little girl tightly in her arms and stared in panic at the ghost knight slowly closing in on her. Was this really the end? Was there no one who could save her? Meanwhile, deep inside the Forgotten Land, Varys stopped walking and asked, "Well, did you find anything strange?" Donglo answered at once. "Reporting to Master, aside from various undead and zombies, there are no signs of living people anywhere." Varys frowned. "That's strange. Land is an important asset to any kingdom. If they had just sent a few adventurers on Andorina's level, they could have easily cleared out the threats here. There's no reason they should have abandoned this place so easily." After thinking for a moment, she gave up guessing. "Forget it. Let's get a helper." Summon Celestial Guardian. Sacred magic patterns instantly lit up the dark space. A holy warrior appeared from within the array, kneeling on one knee. Celestial Guardian Lucas answers the supreme summons of my lord. Watching this, Varys became even more certain of her theory. Sure enough, even servant-type summons had self-awareness, just like Donglo. But that raised another question. Now that she had crossed over to this world, did the so-called celestial realm still truly exist? Forget E.no point thinking about that right now. Varys shook her head. Lucas, this city gives me a very bad feeling. Can you locate the source of that power? Lucas did not dare boast in front of his lord. After sensing the surroundings for a brief moment, he pointed his spear toward an unremarkable little room. If I go by instinct alone, it should be there. Following the direction Lucas indicated, Varys walked straight up to a massive mirror. Whatever was hiding inside clearly hadn't expected anyone to find its location. So only after Varys stopped right in front of the glass did her reflection belatedly appear inside it. Varys smiled faintly. There you are. The moment the ghost in the mirror realized it had been exposed, it immediately turned tail and fled. Varys sighed helplessly. I really don't get why every area boss likes to run the second they get exposed. Oh well, I was actually hoping to chat for a bit. Donglo blinked from the side. You found it right away, as expected of Master. Then she floated closer to the mirror, wrinkled her nose, and sniffed it seriously. This reeks of some cheap knockoff reverse LAW. IT stinks to high heaven. Varys narrowed her eyes thoughtfully. Another law-type power? That little fox girl from before seemed to use some kind of death art too. Thinking that through, she let out a small laugh. So that means there's definitely something shady hidden inside, right? In that case, don't blame me for barging in uninvited. The moment she said that, the surroundings instantly warped into a crimson space. Inside the mirror world, countless undead creatures fixed their dead eyes on the three intruders and roared wildly in warning. Varys, on the other hand, nodded with satisfaction. Now this looks more like a proper Endgame dungeon raid. Seeing the threat, Lucas immediately stepped forward to block the front. My lord, please leave this place to me. Varys nodded and headed for the corner. Do your thing. I'm going to say hi to an old acquaintance. In the corner of the crimson space, Cecilia was holding the Rabbit King in one arm, while bulging blue veins crawled all over her body like twisted roots. Varys calmly waved at her. Yo, long time no see. When Cecilia gave no response at all, Donglo immediately huffed in annoyance. Hey, just because you know Master doesn't mean you get to disrespect Master like this. Varys casually added, don't kill her. Haven't you met her before too? Donglo answered with absolute conviction. Who? Donglo doesn't know. Donglo only needs to remember Master. In reality, Varys and Donglo were watching Cecilia. While they were talking, Cecilia suddenly began trembling violently, looking like she was about to throw her life away in one last fight. Because in Cecilia's hallucination, the two in front of her had become terrifying existences far beyond reason. The pressure they gave off was far greater than anything Big Sis had ever shown. Why would monsters on this level even appear in a place like this? Varys looked at the panicked Cecilia and said flatly, she's probably just trapped in an illusion. She hasn't fully turned undead yet. What a pain. As long as she doesn't die, that should be enough, right? Perhaps frightened by Donglo's earlier snort, in Cecilia's hallucination, the little girl who had been quiet until now suddenly broke free from her arms and ran into a side alley. Cecilia immediately panicked. Don't run off! It's dangerous here! In reality, Varys looked at Cecilia shouting into empty air and sounded baffled. What exactly do we look like in her eyes? Why is she that scared of us? Donglo huffed. Who knows? She clearly has terrible taste. Varys kept studying Cecilia. At first I thought the thing clinging to her was the source of the undead corruption. But now it doesn't seem to be that simple. Back in the hallucination, chasing after the little girl, Cecilia only realized what was under her feet the moment she burst out of the alley, an abyss so deep she couldn't see the bottom. She had no idea how much time passed before she slowly picked herself up from the ground, rubbing her dazed head. Ow, ow. I fell from that high, and I'm still alive? But in the very next second, what she saw made her pupils contract in shock. At the same time, the hallucination broke, and all her twisted and tampered memories came rushing back at once. She stared in disbelief at her skeletal hands, then gritted her teeth. No, I'm a holy knight. I'm not undead. In just a few breaths, Cecilia steadied her mind, raising her broken sword. Even if I die here, I'll still destroy this thing. Varys looked at her. Breaking out of the illusion on your own, that's a little more impressive than I expected. Still, leave the rest to us. Donglo and Lucas attacked together, instantly tearing the hidden tentacles into pieces. But only a moment later, the tentacles regenerated at frightening speed. Varys frowned. Annoying. So it's some kind of inverted law that turns damage into healing and turns the living into undead? Then the source of everything is definitely here. And the core of the mirror world is probably in its hands too. That would make it basically immortal. Varys raised a hand and ordered, Lucas, Donglo, fall back. A brilliant halo unfolded behind her like world-ending holy light. In the next instant, concentrated blasts saturated the entire area. Everyone knows the easiest way to deal with an enemy that regenerates like crazy is to erase it in one go. When the smoke finally began to clear, what was left inside was a white-haired, twin-tailed girl curled up in the middle. Varys looked utterly done with it. Seriously? Why do all you bosses insist on showing up like this after the fight? Then she simply looked away. She waved toward the fading phantom of the little girl in the corner who had guided them here. Thanks for the guide, by the way. Then she turned to look at the sweating Cecilia on the ground. Now that this is over, my sleeping beauty should wake up too, right? And I still don't even know what actually happened here. But right then, the mist-like barrier protecting the boss suddenly shattered, and the white-haired girl went with it, turning into ash in the same instant. Donglo froze for a second. Master, why did you suddenly reduce her to ashes? Varys frowned immediately. Why are you asking me? I hadn't even done anything yet. After that, S-rank explosive phantom disappeared. The world core turned into a branch-shaped brooch and fell into Varys's palm. In the next instant, the scene before her shifted, transforming into a bustling street. On the street, inside some nameless little shop, someone cheerfully handed an apple to a white-haired, twin-tailed girl. Miss Afra, these apples just came in today. Please, have one. The girl called Afra happily took it. Really? Thank you. Varys stood off to the side, thinking to herself. So this was the former city of glory? Then this white-haired girl must be the memory phantom left behind by the boss that just died. Which means everything I'm seeing now is a memory recording stored inside the brooch? She muttered under her breath. Yeah, there's definitely a massive secret buried in this. Driven by curiosity, Varys quietly followed behind Afra's phantom. But to her surprise, Afra walked straight up to the same mirror that had opened the dungeon earlier. I knew it. This really is the place that later became the Forgotten Land. But the instant Varys followed the memory and stepped through the mirror, the sight before her left her completely frozen. How is this possible? Why is there so much modern, sci-fi-looking research equipment inside this mirror? Just then, an angry voice suddenly rang out from the memory playback. Ulysses Fred, stop this right now! Faced with Afra's anger, the man operating the machinery could only pull off his mask and answer helplessly. Afra, don't make a scene here. I already told you. But Afra didn't even let him finish. She shoved the apple she had just bought straight into his mouth. What you say next will decide whether I simply revoke your authority or seal this divine sanctuary for good. And I already warned you. The activity level of the seed of blasphemy must never be pushed above 50%. Are you deaf? Standing off to the side as a spectator, Varys followed Afra's gaze to the root-like mass inside the incubation chamber. The seed of blasphemy, huh? So that means the real body behind those tentacle monsters outside was this thing. Back in the memory, Ulysses waved the rest of the researchers away. We don't have time to slowly decode the god's power anymore. They've already found you. The city of glory alone is no longer enough to protect you. We have to master the power of the seed of blasphemy as soon as possible. Afra cut him off coldly. Shut up. You're asking to die. If the seed of blasphemy goes out of control, the disaster it causes will be beyond anything you can imagine. Humans can't truly master that power. Even our vampire clan can't. Do you understand? Ulysses still tried to argue. But Afra snapped. Enough. She strode to the control panel. I never should have cooperated with humans in the first place. I'm taking it away together with this mirror realm. Ulysses immediately rushed up to stop her. No, you can't do that. Without the power of the seed of blasphemy, how are you supposed to survive the vampire prince's pursuit? You'll die. The moment he said that, the heavy doors of the lab began to violently shake. Afra stared at it in horror. How did they find this place so quickly? Ulysses gritted his teeth. I told you already. We're out of time. We need the power of blasphemy if we're going to stand against the six princes. Smack! Afra slapped him hard across the face. Ulysses, remember this. Mortals must never reach for the power of gods. All it does is drag everyone toward destruction. Ulysses covered his cheek. After a moment of silence, he said quietly, I'll prove I'm right. I can protect you. Then, without hesitation, he slammed his hand onto the red button on the console. A violent, ear-piercing hum immediately filled the entire space. In the next second, the memory playback before Varys' eyes exploded into countless fragments. Varys frowned. Did the recording function inside the brooch crash because the power released was too great? When the shattered vision finally stabilized and pieced itself back together, the surroundings were already reduced to ruins. Afra was lying weakly in Ulysses' arms, barely clinging to life. Why are you this foolish? I should have been the one to invoke the power of blasphemy. I should have been the one to swallow this bitter fruit. Ulysses held her tightly. I won't let you die. Even if I have to betray my family, betray the city of glory, even if I have to sacrifice countless lives, I'll bring you back. Meanwhile, outside the illusion, Cecilia was sticking close to Lucas with open admiration. Lucas felt a little awkward being stared at so intensely. "Excuse me, are you feeling unwell anywhere?" Cecilia hurriedly shook her head. No, I just think you look especially holy." All of a sudden, Donglo seemed to remember something and pointed at her. "Aren't you the one who attacked us that day?" Cecilia panicked instantly. No, I really wasn't trying to attack you, all right," she hastily tried to explain. "And I've completely figured out what happened that day now." Cecilia grew more self-righteous as she spoke. Even if they were the ones who attacked you first, being strong doesn't mean you get to ignore the rules. The stronger someone is, the more they should follow them. That's how everyone gets to live happily. She then looked at Lucas with hopeful eyes. "Mr. Lucas definitely thinks so too, right?" But Varys coldly cut her off. "The people who benefit most from rules are usually the ones who don't have to follow them. Rules don't define justice. The ones who make the rules do." The moment Varys spoke, Lucas, whom Cecilia had just deemed a partner of justice, dropped to one knee without hesitation. "Yes, what my lord says is justice. What my lord does is truth." Looking at the completely dismissive Lucas and feeling the overwhelming pressure radiating from Varys, Cecilia dropped to the ground in terror. What do you mean by that?" Varys looked at her calmly. "I've saved you twice already. But if I decided I wanted your life right now, would that make me just or evil?" Cecilia froze on the spot, her lips moving for a long time without a single word coming out. Varys couldn't be bothered to deal with such a naive holy knight anymore. She simply ordered, "Donglo, destroy all of this." Donglo blinked. "Huh? How much of it?" "All of it." Donglo instantly lit up with excitement. "Got it. Finally, I can stop holding back." Meanwhile, the merchant caravan, still trapped in the fog, had completely fallen apart and was crying in a panic. Lucas, who had come under orders to protect them, only smiled faintly. "Everyone, please close your eyes." The instant he spoke, back inside the illusion, 5 sky-piercing dragonclaw marks violently ripped the entire space apart. What followed was an explosion so terrifying it almost shattered the mind. By the time the caravan members opened their eyes and came back to their senses, the dark, forgotten land was gone. All that remained was a vast, scorched plain still radiating residual heat. After completely destroying the forgotten land, Varys got back into the caravan carriage to continue the journey. "Donglo, why are you so quiet today?" Donglo lay across her lap and grumbled softly. "Because Donglo knows Master is in a bad mood after meeting that female knight. But why is Master still bringing this caravan of burdens along?" Varys scratched her cheek a little awkwardly. "I was actually going to split off from them yesterday, but then Boss Xavier dropped to his knees in front of me, crying and screaming that he was seriously going to die. He begged me to protect them along the way and even offered me everything they'd earned this trip. It's not that I did it for the money. Okay, fine. It's because he offered too much." Just then, an argument erupted outside the carriage. Xavier's angry shout interrupted her thoughts. "So what exactly are you trying to say?" The strange woman blocking the caravan replied impatiently. "Didn't I already tell you? The terrain here is complicated. If you run around carelessly, you'll absolutely get lost." Xavier stuck his head out from the front of the carriage and tried to argue. "But miss, we've taken this route plenty of times. We know it well." The woman gave a cold laugh. "Then it's been at least a month since you last came this way, hasn't it? You've heard of the wishing spirit of Oaken Gorge, right?" "I don't buy legends that ridiculous." But under the woman's cold stare, Xavier's voice got smaller and smaller. "A legend? Don't tell me it's real too." The woman replied flatly. "Yes, the wishing spirit is real. More than a month ago, this entire gorge was turned into a massive maze. It took me a lot of effort just to figure out the exit route." Xavier went stiff on the spot. "You mean someone really saw the wishing spirit?" "Yes, and instead of asking for wealth or power, that person just turned this gorge into a maze?" "Yes," Xavier forced a laugh. "Wow, you almost had me there. If you're going to make up a story, at least make it sound believable." However, an hour later, Xavier was staring at the map, lost in deep thought. "How is this possible? I've been walking in a straight line this whole time." The woman blocking their path said coldly, "I warned you nicely, but you wouldn't listen. So sorry, but the guide fee just went up. Triple the original price, and I'll lead you out." Varys had initially assumed she was just a lone highway robber, but as the woman spoke, a whole group of people suddenly emerged from the bushes. Turns out they had stumbled right into a bandit den. Seeing this, Xavier immediately puffed out his chest. "Miss Varys, leave this to my men." One of the caravan guards immediately stepped forward, raised his weapon, and shouted, "You petty thieves, state your names! My blade, that of a former demon steel rank adventurer, does not cut down nameless nobodies." The bandit leader opposite them instantly cursed back. "What kind of idiot are you? You think I'm some harmless pushover? Remember this well. Fierce Wolf Nicholas. That's my name. And I'm the boss here. A bandit underling beside her immediately let out a sleazy cackle. As expected of our boss. I can't wait to get my hands on those two pretty little girls in the carriage. And before the underling could finish his sentence, his own boss fiercely knocked him on the head with 3 heavy thumps. Whack, whack, whack. Nicholas scolded her subordinate with a dark expression. How many times do I have to say it? We're in the business of robbing money, not women, and we certainly don't kill people. After lecturing her underling, she turned to Varys and Donglo in the carriage with a grin. That said, you two girls really are pretty. Hey, call me Big Sis and nicely, and I won't even charge you. And then came another 3 heavy thumps. Except this time, Nicholas was the one getting hit. After being pinned to the ground single-handedly by Donglo, Nicholas and her entire crew instantly behaved. After casually dealing with the bandits, Varys turned to the woman who had offered to guide them, looking thoughtful. Is that legend about the wishing spirit real? I couldn't even tell how I got lost just now. The woman nodded furiously. Real. Absolutely real. I ran into it myself a month ago, Varys replied. I see. Then take me to see it, the woman quickly explained. I met the wishing spirit by a lake inside a certain cave. It said I was some kind of destined person, so it rewarded me with a wish. But when I went back to look for it later, I couldn't find the cave, and I couldn't find any spirit either. Listening to this, Varys felt the world building of this place was an absurdly mixed up mess. Could this be some weird item left behind by another transmigrator again? After thinking carefully for a moment, she shook her head. Forget it. Even though I'm interested in this wishing spirit, I did promise to get Xavier and the others back to the City of Courage first. And while I'm at it, I can check on how my little princess disciple is doing. With her plan set, Varys turned her attention to the bruised and battered bandits squatting on the ground. As for you lot, do you want to live? The leader, Nicholas, still tried to act tough, giving a cold snort. Do whatever you want. Kill me. Torture me. I don't care, Varys spoke flatly, pointing at a pile of maid outfits nearby. Take your clothes off. Put those on. Nicholas instantly blew up like a stepped-on cat, covering her chest and shouting, What the hell is that supposed to mean? I'm a woman too, you know? A short while later, having been physically persuaded, Nicholas awkwardly tugged at the lace skirt she was now wearing. My lady, even if you want us as laborers, there was really no need to dress me like this, Varys answered expressionlessly. Enough nonsense. Don't forget that your lives are still in my hands. And so, with the bandits drafted as free labor, the caravan resumed its journey. That evening, just as the merchant caravan arrived at the City of Courage, a dull, heavy bell rang out from within the city walls. Xavier's expression changed drastically as he sharply looked up toward the bell tower in the city center. The death bell. The old king is dead. He swallowed hard. That old man's children were already fighting tooth and nail over the throne. Now this is definitely going to turn into a massive disaster. As soon as the death bell rang, the City of Courage immediately entered a state of full lockdown. Although Varys managed to get inside smoothly using the royal badge Lilia had given her, doing so during such a sensitive time meant that a few little rats hiding in the shadows had likely already set their sights on them. After entering the city, Nicholas climbed down nervously from the cargo wagon. B-Boss, what are we doing next? You're not actually about to hand us over to the guards, are you? Varys gave the female bandit a flat look. Aren't you supposed to be a sky rank fighter? How did you not even notice we were being followed? I spared your lives, but not so you could go sightseeing. Properly demonstrate your value to me. The moment she said that, an assassin suddenly lunged from the shadows. Nicholas, however, didn't panic at all. She pulled a huge iron club out of nowhere and effortlessly blocked the strike. Hey boss, you should have just said so. I might suck at counter-surveillance and sneaking around, but when it comes to head-on fighting and cutting people down, we're professionals. She turned and roared at her crew. Boys, get 'em! Aim for the eyes and hit 'em hard. The bandit underlings immediately swarmed the hidden assassins like a pack of wolves. Anyone who targets our big sis better be ready to lose their life. Amid the screams of the assassins, Nicholas crushed the last enemy's neck under her foot and sneered, The strong crushing the weak. That's just how the world works. But right then, a half-dead assassin on the ground suddenly let out a furious roar. Die, you bastard! A poisoned dagger was hurled straight at her face, moving far too fast for Nicholas to react. At that exact moment, a familiar cloud of black smoke dropped from above. It not only casually swatted the dagger into dust, but also materialized into a figure. Prakaka, having revealed himself, looked at Nicholas and mocked. Lady Varys, is this human your new subordinate? She feels a little too weak. He then bowed respectfully to Varys. It seems only I, little mouse, am truly your highness's most capable servant. Varys spoke calmly. Enough. How did the task I gave you go? Prakaka immediately dropped properly to one knee. Reporting to your highness, this lowly one has already delivered your itinerary to the princess as instructed, and your lodging in the city has been arranged. And this as well. He pulled an elegant envelope from his coat. The princess ordered this lowly one to hand this to you personally. Furthermore, this lowly one received intel that the Eternal Throne has also interfered in the royal succession war. Currently, there are at least 3 throne bearers hiding inside the City of Courage. The moment she heard the name Eternal Throne, Nicholas eagerly seized the chance to show her worth. Speaking of which, before we ran into you, big sis, there actually was a group calling themselves the Eternal Throne hanging around the gorge, but we drove them off. Those assassins just now, they weren't part of that bunch, were they? Prakaka gave her a scornful glance. Idiot. Those were the 3rd prince's men. Master helped the 5th princess before, so naturally, she became a target for the other princes. Varys slowly opened the envelope. Targeted the moment I entered the city? It seems wading into these muddy waters might be interesting after all. But after reading the contents, she realized it was actually a letter telling her to stay away and leave the city immediately. It seemed Lilia's current situation really was dire. Donglo, of course, was absolutely furious. What the hell does this woman mean? What does she mean she'll handle it herself and wants us to leave? Master helped her so much, and she acts like this? We should just leave her to rot. Varys stroked Donglo's head to soothe her. All right. The fact that she can write a letter like this means she's at least still safe for now. Still, she turned her gaze toward the royal castle in the distance, and an interesting idea suddenly popped into her head. Elsewhere, in the royal palace baths, Lilia was soaking in the water, letting out a troubled sigh. Big Sister Varys and the others have probably already left the city by now, but this was my choice from the start. The path ahead is mine to face alone. Suddenly, Lilia sharply noticed a figure standing silently by the windowsill. She instantly grabbed the sword resting by the edge of the bath and demanded sharply, "Who are you?" The figure on the sill turned around with a slight smile. "Good evening. I'm an assassin sent to kill you." Lilia was not about to stand there trading words with an assassin. While the intruder was still speaking, she decisively swung her sword. However, facing the fierce strike, the intruder simply reached out a single finger and tapped the blade. The sword froze instantly in midair. Lilia stood paralyzed, staring in utter shock at the familiar face before her. Be Big Sister Varys? The moment Lilia swung her sword, Haw, who had rushed over at the sound of the commotion, shouted, "Lilia, get down!" She then immediately fired an arrow at the assassin on the windowsill. Varys caught the sneak attack arrow effortlessly between 2 fingers and couldn't help but laugh. "This feels familiar. That's the 2nd arrow you fired at me." She took off her cognition disruption mask and looked at Haw. "Miss Haw, I'm actually curious though. How did you recognize me?" By all logic, this mask shouldn't have been easy to see through, but before Varys could finish, Lilia interrupted her, throwing herself forward with open arms. "Big Sister Varys, I missed you so much!" Once she realized Varys' true identity, Lilia simply dragged her into the bath as well. While helping wash her hair, Lilia sighed in admiration. "Big Sister Varys, how is your hair this soft? I'm so jealous." Hua followed right after and jumped into the bath pool too. Leaning against the edge, Hua said, "So the explosion in the Forgotten Land half a month ago really was your doing, Miss Varys. We'd already suspected it, but the rest of the royal capital panicked over it for ages." Lilia said quietly, "If I could, I'd really like to leave all this behind and go adventuring with Big Sister Varys," Varys answered casually. "Adventuring isn't really that exciting. If you want to be queen, I can just wipe out the other competitors for you." Lilia only gave a small smile. "Big Sister Varys, do you remember the first time we met?" Varys nodded. "I do. Hua shot an arrow at me that time too. Back then, I'd almost accepted my fate. If nothing changed, I would have died on the battlefield without even making a mark. But I didn't want to die, so I could only grab onto every lifeline I could find. Luckily, I met you, Big Sister Varys." Lilia stared at the water's surface. "But this time is different. Can a ruler who only knows how to rely on someone else's power really carry the hopes of an entire nation? Right now, the most popular candidate is Second Brother. Although I suspect he's the one who colluded with the Beast Folk, it also proves his political maneuvers and abilities are truly formidable. As for me, even after borrowing your strength to win that battle earlier, all I gained was a little more of a voice in the royal capital," Varys said flatly. "So what? I'm not bragging, but helping you seize the throne really is simple for me." Lilia nodded. "I know, but once it's done, someone still has to lead this country. And I'm guessing you definitely wouldn't want to deal with all the exhausting, trivial matters of ruling a kingdom, right? Besides, Father also went through a similar struggle before he secured the throne. So, Big Sister Varys, please let me rely on my own strength to win this." Hearing this declaration of independence, Varys sank into the water and blew a couple of bubbles in resignation. "You rejecting me so seriously makes someone like me, who just wanted to solve your problems with brute force, look like a massive villain." Lilia sat by the edge of the bath in silence for a long time, before finally getting to the main point. "The truth is, Father was poisoned. We all know the killer is one of us siblings. Whoever exposes the murderer will earn the legitimate right to succession. She was supposed to be talking about serious political matters, but before she realized it, tears were already streaming down her face. She wiped at them roughly, forcing a smile. Maybe I'm just too tired these past few days. It's not like Father and I were ever that close anyway. Then why won't the tears stop? In that moment, she finally broke under the immense pressure in her heart and threw herself into Varys' arms, seeking comfort like a child. As for comforting people, Varys had at least gotten a little practice from dealing with Donglo, so she could only pat Lilia lightly on the back. All right. Just let it all out. Meanwhile, Donglo, who had served as the practice dummy for this skill, could only sulk indignantly in the corner of the bathroom. Watching Lilia hug Varys, Donglo bit her handkerchief and muttered, "That sly, wicked woman. Actually using this as an excuse to hug Master. Whatever. Out of respect for the fact that this dragon is in a decent mood today, I'll let it slide for now." At the same time, back at the Adventurers Guild, Cecilia weakly accepted her Sky Rank promotion certification. Recalling the scene in the Forgotten Land, she still felt lingering fear. Sky Rank? But even Legendary Rank, or perhaps even beyond that, shouldn't be capable of that kind of terrifying instant annihilation power. Could she really be a god? But would a god truly disregard the laws of the world so completely? If even the goddess herself thought that way, the sheer blasphemy of that thought scared Cecilia the instant it popped into her head. She slapped her own cheeks and scolded herself under her breath. "Cecilia, what on earth are you thinking? That is blatant disrespect toward the goddess." Just then, a figure in black robes strode brazenly right past her, carrying an unconscious person over their shoulder. Cecilia snapped back to reality. A kidnapping right inside the royal capital? The knight's code carved into her bones made her turn and chase after them on pure instinct. But in the very next second, a long, razor-sharp tail swept fiercely toward her neck. If Cecilia hadn't dodged in time, her head would have been taken off on the spot. The attacker stepped out from the shadows and sneered. Do Aurora's lapdogs always love sticking their noses into other people's business? Getting a clear look at the assailant, Cecilia's face darkened immediately. A dragonoid? She gripped her weapon tightly and warned sharply. Even if you are a dragonoid, you do not have the right to speak the goddess's name so disrespectfully. Meanwhile, back in the royal palace baths, the faint aura released by this street fight was quickly picked up by Donglo, who had still been sulking in the corner. She perked up at once. Compared to staying in the bathroom and watching Lilia act spoiled while hugging Master, she definitely preferred slipping out to find some fun of her own. On the other side of the city, Varys, who had already changed into casual clothes and left the palace, was strolling through the night. She muttered to herself, "Lilia might have insisted on not letting me interfere with the royal succession. But what does that have to do with adventurer Varys?" But she hadn't gone far from the palace before she stumbled across two royal maids plotting something in a secluded corner. The pink-haired maid nervously checked their surroundings first, then whispered, "How about the task you gave me?" "Just like you asked. I've been putting the drug in Princess Mona's tea every day for the past 7 days, and I personally watched her drink it every time. You won't go back on your promise, right?" "Keeping my family safe, and the part about keeping me forever young." The blonde maid turned and gave a cold smile. "Relax. As long as we have little Princess Mona under control, you'll be the great hero who helped the second prince take the throne. You'll have so much wealth and luxury for the rest of your life that you couldn't refuse it, even if you tried." Hiding in the shadows, Varys frowned slightly. "Mona, if I remember correctly, that's Lilia's favorite little sister." Thinking of that, Varys immediately changed direction, slipped into Mona's bedroom, and casually gave the sleeping little princess a full, all-around holy purification package. Only after Varys had finished and left without a sound did Mona groggily rub her eyes and sit up in bed. "Was someone here just now? My body feels so light." Having dealt with the poisoning incident, Varys followed the sounds of the earlier battle and arrived at a destroyed street. There, Adventurers Guild receptionist Rebecca was looking at the mess left behind by Cecilia and the dragonoid, sighing. Seriously, who was fighting here in the middle of the night and ruined the street like this? Hearing footsteps approaching from behind, Rebecca instinctively turned to block them. "I'm sorry, there was an unexplained explosion here, and the Adventurers Guild is currently handling the scene. Unrelated personnel are not allowed any closer." Varys stopped and replied calmly, "I'm an adventurer too. Can I go in and take a look?" Rebecca smiled slightly. "I know all the local adventurers. You two must be new, right?" Varys nodded blankly. "That's right. My name is Varys." Varys then added, "If I remember correctly, my current rank should be Mithril." Hearing the name, Rebecca paused and immediately cut her off. "Wait, you mean the Miss Varys registered in Flame Dragon City? You're already a Demon Steel rank adventurer now, and the promotion was specially approved by the City Lord herself. Did you seriously not know?" Rebecca's gossipy nature instantly flared to life. "I've heard that City Lord is usually extremely unapproachable and difficult to deal with. So what exactly is your relationship with her? However, her burning curiosity had only just begun to show when a hand suddenly reached out from the side, pressed down on her shoulder, and shut the gossip down. A well-dressed man stepped out of the shadows and gently scolded, "Rebecca, can't you see this lady is uncomfortable? Besides, you are still on the clock, are you not?" The man then turned to Varys and gave an elegant bow. "A pleasure to meet you. My name is Bonda, and I am the owner of the damaged properties in this area. If you discover anything, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could let me know." Bonda maintained his elegant demeanor and offered with a smile, "That was my oversight, Dot. Do the two of you have a place to stay? I can arrange the most luxurious lodging for you." Donglo leaned close to Varys' ear and whispered, "Master, that person gives me a really rotten feeling, like a sewer rat." Hearing Donglo's assessment, Varys understood perfectly and gave a slight nod. Then she turned back and impatiently waved a hand to cut Banda off. "No need. We're used to sleeping in small rooms. Thanks for the offer, but there's no need to see us out." Banda stood there watching their backs as they left, the smile gradually vanishing from his face as he remained silent for a long time. Then he gave a cold order to Rebecca beside him. "I want all the information on those two. Find it out as quickly as possible." Rebecca paused, looking confused. "Your Highness, they're only demon steel rank adventurers. Is that really necessary?" Banda lowered his gaze, his tone heavy with the unquestionable authority of someone in power. "I said, give me all of their information." Early the next morning, back at the inn, Lilia absolutely exploded the moment she learned from Varys that her younger sister had been continuously drugged. Meanwhile, Varys picked up a cherry and playfully teased Donglo, speaking in an absent-minded tone. "Oops, guess I accidentally let something slip. Funny, because I seem to recall someone swearing in the bath earlier that she didn't need my help." Lilia hurriedly leaned in. "Big Sister Varys." Varys laughed and waved a hand. "Relax, relax. I already took a trip to the palace last night and neutralized the poison in your sister's body while I was at Empath. As for the remaining clues about the mastermind, you can dig those up yourself." Lilia rubbed her forehead in sheer relief. "As long as Mona is safe, that's enough. She's only 12. She never should have been dragged into this succession war, much less hurt because of it." Varys glanced at her, guiding her thoughts. "Looks like you already have a guess as to who did it." Lilia went quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, second brother Patrick Ban is always cautious. He wouldn't normally do something this risky for such a small return. The third brother has always been suppressed by him, so it's highly likely he would use an underhanded method like this to force me to side with him." Donglo burst out laughing and was just about to open her mouth to mock Lilia for guessing wrong, since they had overheard the maid say it was the second prince's orders the night before. When Varys reacted instantly and casually stuffed a piece of cake into her mouth to shut her up. Completely oblivious, Lilia continued her analysis. "But the military envoys backing third brother don't have the resources to execute such a precise poisoning plan. So, this special drug, which bypassed the palace's detection, was most likely obtained from an outside party through some kind of exchange. And in the current royal capital, the only people with that kind of specialized channel could only be." After listening to her deductions, Varys slowly provided the final piece of the puzzle. "The Eternal Throne." Lilia shot to her feet in utter disbelief. "Has he gone insane? Cooperating with a cult?" Varys chimed in again at the perfect moment. "Think a little deeper. Developing that kind of specialized drug definitely requires repeated live testing, and healthy human bodies make the absolute best test subjects." Lilia's face instantly darkened. She stared hard at the table. "Now that you mention it, large numbers of missing person requests for commoners have been piling up at the Adventurers Guild for a long time now. My head was so full of the frontline war that I completely failed to notice." Varys deliberately dragged out her tone, adding fuel to the fire. "Oh my, what should we do? If the source isn't dealt with, little Mona might just keep getting targeted in all sorts of unavoidable ways. And surely, Miss Princess, you wouldn't want your precious little sister getting hurt again, would you?" Hearing that, having had her absolute bottom line crossed, Lilia could no longer sit still. She immediately shouted toward the door, "Guards!" A regular guard quickly pushed the door open. "Your Highness, what are your orders?" Lilia took one look at him and waved him off dismissively. "Not you. You may step back. Sister Hua, come in." Hua, dressed in a maid's outfit, immediately stepped inside. "Your Highness, what do you need?" Lilia, who seemed to have grabbed Hua's hand in her earlier excitement, awkwardly pulled her hand back before issuing a serious command. "I found clues to an Eternal Throne stronghold in the city. Mobilize all the forces under my command and go to the Adventurers Guild to issue a bounty in my name. They must be completely wiped out." Later, with the holy knight named Cecilia leading the way, Lilia and the others finally located a hidden underground prison outside the city where the missing people were being held. However, when they arrived, the massive hole Varys had casually blasted through the prison wall the night before, because she couldn't be bothered to find the door, had the accompanying military officer Funal sweating bullets, staring at the terrifying signs of destruction. Funal couldn't help but gulp. Even high-strength magical metal was violently obliterated like this. Could this be the work of those lunatics from the Eternal Throne again? The conscripted bandit leader, Nicholas, strolled over casually. That kind of exaggerated destructive power had to be Boss's doing. Only a monster like her could pull something like this off. Just then, Lilia sharply noticed movement in the corner of the room. "Who's there?" The little boy, Yelan, carefully poked his head out. "Princess, it really is you. You look exactly like your portraits. You're so pretty." As he spoke, he pulled out a book from behind his back. "Princess, a pretty lady told me to give this to you earlier." Lilia immediately guessed that this was the item Varys had left for her and quickly took it to look through it. In the next moment, she stared at the pages in sheer shock, completely not expecting a hidden passage to be concealed behind the bookshelf. Stepping back in time to a little earlier, when Varys first entered this secret passage, she couldn't help but complain, "How strange. There isn't a single light at the end of this tunnel." Annoyed by the dark, she casually summoned a ball of holy light to illuminate the way. In the next instant, an entire room full of withered, vegetative human bodies came into view. Even Varys, who usually kept her emotions pretty steady, was genuinely shocked for a moment. So many people had gone missing in the city in succession, and not a single word had leaked out. The higher-ups of this kingdom were truly rotten to the core. Varys casually tossed out a high-level healing spell. While it effortlessly healed all their physical injuries, it failed to wake a single person up. Oh? To think the invincible Varys would actually hit a wall. That was the first time since she transmigrated. Interesting. Donglo, stay here and protect them. I'm going deeper inside to find the culprit. By the way, if anyone barges in later, don't just kill them. Beating them half to death or just knocking them out will do. Meanwhile, deep inside the innermost secret chamber, Leopold was furiously flipping through the documents in his hands. "I only needed a little more time. Why are those two bastard princes gone today of all days? Why did it have to be her who found this place first?" Boom. A dull explosion instantly shattered the heavy door, and the shower of flying stone made him stop cold. Varys crunched over the rubble and walked in. "Open up, old geezer. Room service." Leopold let out a cold laugh. "I knew it. You came for my experimental results. You came for the great Leopold himself." Varys looked at him like he was completely insane. "Wait, who are you? I don't even know you." Leopold's face twisted as if he had just taken a fatal, critical blow. "You actually don't know who I am?" Trembling with rage, he suddenly grabbed a poisoned dagger resting beside him. "Even if the final test isn't complete, I'll still make you pay." But instead of attacking her with a wet squelch, he abruptly plunged the dagger straight into his own chest, leaving Varys utterly speechless. Seriously? Is suicidal mutation the new trend for villains nowadays? More importantly, where was the promised dramatic transformation effect? Why did he just drop dead? Almost laughing from the sheer absurdity of his actions, Varys simply released her massive mental perception and scanned through all the research data in the room in an instant. It was actually quite interesting. Across all of Illusory Realm skills, only the highest tier resurrection magic truly touches upon the domain of the soul. And somehow, this old geezer had actually managed to figure out a few tricks regarding soul extraction. Varys silently made a note of him in her mind, but unfortunately for him, he didn't have the right to kill the people she wanted to save. Brilliant magical energy instantly flooded the entire room, then converged sharply onto the eternal scepter in Varys' hand. "Answer my call and descend. Hand of heaven. Time magic. Genesis. Flowing dawn." In a flash, a dazzling torrent of light, like a celestial river collapsing from the heavens, pierced straight through the underground layers and instantly enveloped the entire orphanage on the surface above. After casting that ultimate skill, Donglo immediately ran up happily the moment she saw Varys return. "Master, you're back." But Varys was still fuming, so she walked straight past her as if she hadn't seen her at all. Genesis. Flowing Dawn is inherently a top-tier wide-area healing skill that restores SP. Varys never really understood what SP was supposed to represent in reality back when she played the game, but after coming into contact with the laws of souls in this world, she suddenly understood. SP is essentially soul power. So why hadn't they woken up even after the skill was cast? Was the range not wide enough? Or were their souls tampered with and extracted long ago? That damn dead old geezer. He actually made her hit a wall twice in a row. That was seriously infuriating. While Varys was sulking by herself, the accompanying military officer Funal also walked into the underground hidden chamber through the secret passage. Looking at the tragic scene filling the room, his tone turned extremely serious. "Her Highness has ordered you all to fall back to the surface immediately. Now. Right now." Donglo stared at the dazzling pillar of yellow light in the center of the room, only to realize that Master was actually ignoring her. Master was ignoring her. Curled up into a pitiful ball, Donglo felt like she was about to die of depression and had zero interest in dealing with Funal and his bunch of weaklings. But Funal, a battle-hardened veteran, felt what true suffocating danger was for the very first time in that moment. We're seriously out of luck. We've hit a wall of solid steel this time. Just then, a massive spiritual shockwave violently erupted from the deepest part of the secret chamber. In almost an instant, the impact heavily affected not only the underground area but everyone in the orphanage on the surface as well. Only Cecilia sharply realized that this bone-chilling sensation felt incredibly similar to facing that boss back in the Forgotten Land. The guards pointed at the sky in terror. "The source is above us." The moment those words fell, a massive spiritual phantom condensed and took shape right above everyone's heads. At the same time, Leopold's manic laughter echoed from the basement. Success. I, the great Leopold, have finally succeeded." The female bandit Nicholas stared at the phantom above, her mouth twitching violently. Does this even still count as legendary rank? Can humans really fight a thing like that? Hua made the tactical call instantly. "Anyone who can still move, grab the others and retreat now." Hearing that, Cecilia turned and scooped up Natalie, a civilian who had just been rescued and was staggering on her feet, completely ignoring the spiritual attacks raining down from above as she desperately ran for the exit. Almost at that exact moment, as Cecilia's resolve to protect others surged, the invisible shackles binding her hands suddenly shattered. A supremely holy power of purification burst forth from within her, effortlessly neutralizing the attacks Leopold had hurled at them. Down in the basement, Leopold witnessed this through his phantom and stared in utter disbelief. What is happening? Why is my soul attack completely useless against that trainee knight?" Cecilia herself looked just as stunned. But before she could even react, a longsword forged entirely from pure holy power slowly descended into her palm. Feeling that force, so incredibly powerful, yet so gentle, Cecilia's eyes reddened with emotion. This power, it isn't ordinary radiance, it's pure light. She slowly closed her eyes. Following the guidance of that power, she pointed the blade straight at the massive phantom in the sky. In the next instant, the blazing sword light of holy radiant slash swept out like sunlight, illuminating the earth, instantly erasing every trace of foul energy within the orphanage dungeon. Natalie stared in shock from the sidelines. What is this? Some secret art of the Holy Kingdom? But when she saw the young girl standing there trembling after delivering that strike, she hurriedly asked in concern, "Cecilia, are you all right?" Cecilia quickly shook her head. I'm fine. I'm just too happy." She stared at the glowing light in her hands and murmured, "You know, ever since I was little, the adults always told me that the more devout your faith in the goddess, the stronger the power she grants you becomes. That's why I always dreamed of becoming a saint as strong as my sister, so I could protect everyone. But after everything that's happened recently, that goal has felt farther and farther away. I even started wondering, was everything they told me really true?" Staring at the sword of pure light in her hands, Cecilia's heart swelled with overwhelming emotion. Just now, the goddess herself personally cast a sacred and compassionate gaze upon me. For a believer, there is no greater honor. Beside her, Natalie stared with wide, shocked eyes. How is that possible? Didn't the divine realm disappear hundreds of years ago? Cecilia said nothing more. She simply gripped her holy sword tightly and murmured with absolute devotion, "Please allow me to offer you this victory." Holy radiant slash! Violent light element power instantly tore straight through the twisting underground dungeon, illuminating the entire street on the surface above in a blinding white glow. Meanwhile, hiding in midair and watching all this unfold, Varys couldn't help but feel a little surprised. She really didn't expect this little fool's light affinity to be so absurdly high. If it had been anyone else delivering that strike, the effect probably wouldn't have even reached half of that. Without thinking, Varys dropped her cloaking and spoke in her normal voice. "You're an interesting one, in more ways than one. Consider that light sword a little gift from me. Don't forget your original convictions. Use it well. See ya." Hearing that familiar voice, Cecilia froze on the spot below. That voice? Miss Varys? And hanging in midair, Varys suddenly felt incredibly awkward. She'd spoken way too fast and completely forgot to cast a voice-altering spell on herself. But the very next second, Cecilia dropped heavily to her knees, facing the direction of the voice with utmost reverence, and began muttering to herself in fanatical devotion. "I understand now. The goddess never abandoned me. From the very beginning, she has taken on a mortal guise, silently watching over every devout believer. When I was deceived and wandered into that nest of undead in the Forgotten Land, she appeared like a descending deity and pulled me out of death. Smire. And now, when I fell into deadly peril again, she appeared once more, granting me her blessing and power." Tears streaming down her face, Cecilia shouted to the sky, "Miss Varys is the goddess's avatar in this world. May your radiance shine across the land. Your will shall be the path we follow unto death. Lady Varys, even if I must exhaust my entire life doing so, I will never betray the glory you have bestowed upon me. I will strictly uphold the duty and faith of your divine envoy. Hiding in the sky and silently watching Cecilia plunge into this fanatical, self-indulgent delusion, Varys felt an indescribable urge to cringe so hard her toes could dig a hole in the ground. Whatever. There was no saving this silly girl. Since the problem here was solved, she figured she should just head back. However, the moment Varys resumed her invisibility and returned to the underground secret chamber, she saw Donglo kicking that unfortunate military officer Funel against the walls like a rubber ball. Funel, his face bruised and swollen, wailed, "Wait, please, Miss Dragon. I really mean no harm." Varys rubbed her temples wearily and let out a sigh. "Donglo, stop. Sit." Donglo instantly sat down obediently, leaning into Varys' palm and asking for head pats. "Sorry, Master. This guy is different from the others. His skin is too thick. I haven't quite figured out the exact amount of force needed to make it hurt without accidentally killing him." Even though his whole body was in agonizing pain, the moment the battered Funel saw Varys, he reacted on pure instinct and struggled to his feet. You must be the legendary Miss Varys. If it weren't for you, the misunderstanding between me and this Miss Dragon probably wouldn't have been resolved so easily. To express my gratitude, may I invite you to a banquet tonight?" Seeing a mere human actually dare to hit on her master, Donglo immediately bared her little fangs and whispered to Varys, "Master, can I bite his head off?" A few days later, after thoroughly cleaning out the Eternal Throne strongholds within the city, Lilia took the irrefutable evidence she had gathered and went straight to the Adventurers Guild to confront Chairman Herbert. "I believe you've already received the news. The reason the Eternal Throne cult was able to firmly root itself in the royal capital is precisely because they colluded with my so-called second brother." But Chairman Herbert merely stared at the report on his desk, frowning in silence for a long time before finally answering. "Fifth Highness, my position hasn't changed. The internal power struggles within your royal family have nothing to do with my Adventurers Guild. Furthermore, everything requires concrete evidence." Smack! Lilia forcefully slammed a ledger retrieved from the stronghold onto the table. This details every transaction where he provided live human test subjects to the Eternal Throne. If this doesn't count as evidence, then what does? Herbert still refused to yield, playing politics. It is also entirely possible that someone forged this ledger to deliberately frame the second prince. Your Highness, bringing this ledger to me is forcing me to take a side on behalf of the guild. Just as the two were locked in a stalemate, a man's voice suddenly came from the doorway of the chairman's office. "Why don't you both stop for a moment and hear me out?" Lilia turned her head and paused in surprise. "Legion Commander Funel? What happened to your face? Why is it covered in bruises?" Sporting two massive black eyes, Funel didn't even blink, forcing a calm facade as he replied, "Oh, the doorstep at the Adventurers Guild was a bit too high. I accidentally tripped over it on my way in. It's nothing." As he spoke, he walked up to Lilia, dropped to one knee, and lifted the back of her hand in a knight's salute. "Fifth Highness, I believe that if the royal family and the nobility wish to enjoy the support of the people, then they must also bear the absolute responsibility of protecting them. The second prince's actions, enabling a cult to use commoners for experiments, constitute a severe dereliction of duty, and frankly, a betrayal of the kingdom. Therefore, I, Legion Commander Funel Stevens, am willing to offer the strength of my army to your Highness to aid you in ascending the throne. However, before we proceed, there is one person I would like to request from your Highness." Lilia looked down at him, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Who do you want?" At that moment, the newly conscripted Legion Commander Funel, sporting a face full of bruises, offered Varys a dopey grin. "Miss Varys, you truly are beautiful." "Excuse me?" A giant stress mark popped on Lilia's forehead. "You look like a beaten pulp, and you still have the nerve to flirt?" A little while later, after shooing Funel away, Varys curiously examined the brand new badge Lilia had handed her. "Sky rank?" Lilia nodded. "Yes, Big Sister Varys. You're now a Sky rank adventurer officially recognized by the royal family." Varys looked completely speechless. "But I didn't even do anything?" Lilia shook the documents in her hand, not bothering to argue the point. "All the survivors from the orphanage dungeon have already been safely settled. Because of this incident, 2 holy knights have officially joined my faction, and one of them is even the second daughter of the Cecilia family from the Holy Kingdom. Furthermore, the ledger you gave me is more than enough to completely bring down my second brother Patrick BNN. As for one last thing, the Adventurers Guild asked me to warn you that Patrick has been sending people to investigate you lately." Varys asked casually, "Do you know someone over at the guild?" Lilia answered, "Yes, her name is Rebecca. She's the guild chairman's daughter and also the head receptionist." She mentioned running into you on the street last night. She paused for a moment before adding with a complicated look. And then there's Funeral, the Duke's only son. After not even a full day, he's already completely smitten with you too. Lilia looked up at her. Big Sister Varys really is popular. Varys tilted her head and grinned playfully. What's this? Is our little princess jealous? Lilia shook her head, but her hands unconsciously tightened their grip on her skirt. She looked down with a bitter smile. Big Sister Varys? Did I make the wrong choice? She took out a small, blood-stained bag of candy and said quietly, This belonged to that boy named Eli. Right before he died, he kept begging me to give these candies to his little sister, but I still have no idea how I'm supposed to explain this to her. Wanting to complete a transfer of power using my own strength, without shedding any blood, that kind of thinking was naive to the point of absolute stupidity. If I had just asked you to step in from the very beginning, maybe everything would have ended in an instant. So many people wouldn't have had to die. I'm the one who got them killed. Dropping her usual nonchalance, Varys gently took Lilia's hand and comforted her in a low voice. It was a little naive, sure, but honestly, I don't hate someone for having those kinds of ideals. Later that night, Varys stood alone on the rooftop, staring at the bag of candy she had taken from Lilia, lost in deep thought. Ever since crossing over to this world, whether it was during the large-scale slaughter at Myriad Ravine Fortress or the very first time she took a life in Flame Dragon City, Varys had felt almost no emotional fluctuation within herself. Even with Cecilia, if the knight's performance back then had been just slightly worse, Varys knew she would have killed her without a second of hesitation. And regarding little Eli's death this time, logically speaking, Varys felt she should be furious. She felt she should be trying everything to resurrect him, and then casually wiping the Eternal Throne off the map while she was at it. Yet she couldn't muster even the slightest bit of interest in playing the hero of justice. It truly felt as though she was missing a piece of the emotional empathy that normal humans were supposed to possess. Varys lowered her head to look at Donglo in her arms. Donglo, in your eyes, am I still me? Are the things I do actually right? Donglo rubbed affectionately against her palm and answered with absolute seriousness. Donglo doesn't really understand all that complicated stuff. But to Donglo, master is master. Master can do whatever master wants to do. If anyone dares to disagree, Donglo will beat them up. Varys's normally detached gaze softened slightly upon hearing those words. Is that so? If Donglo stays with me, then maybe moving forward little by little, doing whatever feels right in the moment, isn't such a bad thing after all. Meanwhile, on a certain street in the royal capital, a luxurious carriage was rampaging through the crowd. Move! Move! If you don't want to die, get out of the way! The female bandit Nicholas, who had been wandering nearby, couldn't stand the sight, and immediately stepped in to stop the carriage by force. You nobles are just as arrogant as ever. Looks like I didn't kill enough of you back when I was a highway robber. Inside the carriage, the fourth prince looked at Nicholas, a known member of Lilia's faction, and let out a sinister sneer. Just as expected, she took the bait. She dared attack a royal carriage. Seize her. The scene sharply cut to the royal council chamber. The second prince, Patrick, suddenly kicked the doors open and shouted excitedly at Lilia. Lilia, you actually dared to send an assassin after me? Lilia frowned. What are you talking about? Patrick laughed triumphantly. Stop pretending. That assassin's mouth wasn't very tight. After we caught him, he confessed everything. And the news that you poisoned our father to death? I've already had my people spread it. By tomorrow, everyone in the capital will know what a vicious woman you are. Lilia didn't even bother arguing with the clownish second prince. Instead, she turned to look at her eldest brother, Banda, who was sitting nearby. Sending someone to fake an assassination attempt on second brother using my name just to spread rumors. This was your brilliant idea, wasn't it, eldest brother? Banda gracefully swirled his wine glass and replied nonchalantly. If you really didn't do it, then all you have to do is present evidence to clear your name. I see. Lilia drew a deep breath, her eyes sharpening. I originally planned to wait until after father's body was properly laid to rest before settling accounts, but looking at the situation now, it's better to end all of this sooner. Early the next morning, the Assembly of 10,000 Spirits, the highest tier public tribunal in the nation, was suddenly convened. It was presided over personally by Chancellor Griffith, with the chairman of the Adventurers Federation and Duke Angus serving as adjudicators, all broadcast to the entire nation. Legend had it that beneath the gaze of the Heavenly Spirits array, all lies and violence would be exposed. Anyone who dared to lie within the array would be struck by divine lightning, ensuring everyone received the absolute fairest judgment. Watching the magical array from the gallery, Varys thought to herself, unlike the law of death back in the Forgotten Land, is this so-called Heavenly Spirit basically just a truth-telling law that forces people not to lie through fear? The moment the Chancellor finished announcing the agenda for today's trial, Second Prince Patrick eagerly jumped out. As everyone knows, the late king's condition suddenly worsened only after the fifth princess, Lilia, returned to the capital. And before that, she was the only one who met with him privately. On top of that, among your subordinates, there are not only heretics from the eternal throne, but even a damn beast folk. However, standing at the defendant's stand, Lilia could not even be bothered to look at him. Looking straight at the judge's bench, Lilia stated with a clear conscience, "There are no beast folk among my people, nor are there any who endanger this country or its citizens. Everything I have done has been for the sake of giving the people a better life." When the spirit mirror hanging above showed no reaction, proving Lilia wasn't lying, Patrick immediately panicked. He hurriedly turned to eldest Prince Banda. "Damn it, eldest brother, didn't you say you had more evidence?" Banda simply replied calmly, "Did I? I don't recall ever saying such a thing." Betrayed, Patrick flew into a rage. "You boss!" Boom! A massive crash of thunder echoed as a bolt of lightning materialized out of nowhere and struck down, instantly cutting Patrick off before the curse could leave his mouth. The Chancellor struck his gavel coldly. "This is the sacred ground of the 10,000 spirits. No reckless speech. No foul language." Seeing this farce, Lilia let out a quiet sigh. "Eldest brother, it is time for all these conspiracies to end." She locked eyes with Banda and demanded loudly, "Banda, the chaos caused by the Eternal Throne inside the city. You were the one secretly colluding with them, weren't you?" "No." Banda's answer was perfectly flat. And shockingly, the spirit mirror showed no reaction. That single answer, having passed the ultimate lie detector, made Lilia's eyes widen in disbelief. Refusing to accept it, she continued to press her accusations. "It was you who partnered with the heretical cult, the Eternal Throne, tolerating and even actively directing them to commit tens of thousands of civilian kidnappings within our borders." The mirror remained dead silent. Lilia even threw out her biggest trump card. "It was you who colluded with the Beast Folk army, sold out the kingdom for glory, and even tried to use the Beast Folk to have me killed in the war." In stark contrast to Lilia's urgent, rapid-fire interrogation, Banda merely adjusted his monocle with elegance and replied calmly, "No." The spirit mirror still didn't strike him with divine lightning, proving he wasn't lying. With all her evidence rendered invalid before the absolute law of truth, the trial fell into a complete deadlock. The Chancellor had no choice but to declare a temporary 30-minute recess. The moment they retreated to the waiting room, Hua hurried over to support the swaying Lilia. "Lilia, are you all right?" Lilia gritted her teeth and shook her head. "I'm fine. I just can't figure out where I went wrong." Just then, a familiar voice, full of amusement, suddenly sounded from outside the waiting room door. "Well now, our little princess looks like she's got quite the headache."